A lot of you are going to spit your coffee out right now because it's just me. I know. Scary, isn't it? Just you and I sitting here. Now, just before you start calling the station and stuff, it's only temporary. George is on his way up. Oh, we had a little bit of a technical glitch this morning. And so he's literally in the elevator right now. And you and I are just going to have to spend a couple of minutes together. I know. Disappointing. I apologize. I know that you're starting your day out and you want to hear George. And then it's my this jackass here. But hey, I appreciate it. We appreciate you hanging out with us. George is feeling better. His voice is still on the mend, so a little gravelly. He's still kind of got that, let's just say, phone sex voice. Let's do that. That's just between you and me. He won't know that because he will not hear that you and I have described it that way. So, yeah, he's got that super sexy voice. He'll be coming in. We'll talk a little bit. We're going to talk some Biden documents. We've got a number of clips from, we got some stuff from KGP. We got some stuff from Garland. Of course, Biden talking about it. And then the thoughts of Kevin McCarthy. Later on today, we do have a guest with Denver Public Schools. Going to be talking about some stuff there. But, hey, it's Friday the 13th. You superstitious? Is this something that you're scared of? Do you have superstitions in your life? Are you the person that doesn't, like a black cat walking in front of you? If you see a ladder, do you not want to walk underneath a ladder? That's a weird one for me because I have a little bit of that superstition, but I'm not really afraid of it. However, I will admit that I did have a bit of a superstition when I was playing soccer. When I was getting ready before the match, I had a specific procedure I went through. I didn't have to hold down, always, but there were certain ways I would get ready for the match, certain steps I would have to take, and I guess that would be called superstitious. Also, getting on and off the field, when I would step on and off the field, I would never step on the touch line. That was something that was very important to me. It was a superstition, not to touch the touch line before you actually get on the field. So,
Billy, you had also mentioned you didn't like touching the cum line. That was a different game.
Yes, yeah, totally different game. Yes, that's more my fraternity days in college. But yes. How are you?
Well, listen, man, I'm sitting across from you, so that says a lot of things.
I know. It really does. I was telling people you had the super sexy porn voice today.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how better or different it is from Tuesday, but
it's better. Yeah.
Okay, good. If it's any indication of this ridiculous, undefined illness or whatever that has befallen me, I feel better. I mean, on Tuesday when I was talking, I could tell by the end of the show I was falling apart. And then I don't think I have taken a sick day in 10 or 15 years. I'm fundamentally opposed to it. Yeah. If I thought I was going to give someone the Andromeda strain, I'd feel differently. But this whole I feel bad kind of thing, even if I had to work in a different location. But
yes. That's interesting for the sick thing. Because as a parent, we grow up and being a parent, we save our sick days because those belong to the children.
Right.
We don't get to be sick. We have to have our sick days when the kids are sick. But your kids are at an age where you don't necessarily have to.
That's right.
So what is your opposition for taking the sick days? Because I've struggled with this too. And I had to come to a realization about 18 months ago that I think has helped me. But I don't know. Talk to me about yours.
Well, Billy, you can appreciate this. There's a great deal of guilt associated with being a Catholic. And growing up in a household where, I had two parents that worked every day of my life, as far as I know. I mean, I don't remember them ever not working. My mom, sometime in her early 40s, decided that it wasn't enough to be, the chief investigator for the Office for Civil Rights in Denver, that she wanted to go to law school. So with a 12, 9, and 1-year-old, and my dad's support, went to law school at night for 4.5 years at DU to become a lawyer. I mean, and I used to find my mom asleep face down on the floor in the middle of the family room. And I'd come down and she'd be surrounded by books and highlighters and pens. And I'd come down and take a little Afghan, if people know what those are, and cover her up with it. And I just grew up in a household where the work ethic was an ethic. I mean, it was legit. And if you called in sick, man, it better be something serious. It better be something more than I got a really bad headache, or I got the sniffles. I don't feel good. Now, I agree. There are some public health negatives to an approach that says, maybe I'm contagious. Let's go find out. Let's go treat the classroom like a petri dish. I get that. I hate that when parents send their kids to school with an indescribable green snot coming out of their kid's face. But for me, I just never felt comfortable using it. On the other hand, my brother, who's moved to Minnesota, and I'm confident doesn't listen to the podcast, this guy would gobble up every earned minute possible. I mean, if he got a vacation day, dude, it was gone. It was gone by the next pay period. If he had a sick day, dude found a way to be sick every day he could. Now that's not like him now. That's him 25 years ago. But I just never had that feeling. I always felt like I needed to justify what I was getting paid.
I had that too. And I struggled with it for many, many, many years. And it was just maybe 18, 24 months ago where I changed a little bit of my philosophy on that, because I would never call in sick. I mean, I am a person who, and I'm afraid to say that there was a record at the time, the place that I was employed. I broke the record at the employer for the number of continuous days worked. Now, this isn't just weeks. This is continuous days. I worked more than 3.5 months in a row. Every single
that includes Saturdays and Sundays
day.
and stuff?
Yes, Saturdays and Sundays. So that is 7 days a week for over 3.5 months. And they said, "Oh, you broke the record." And at first I'm like, yeah. Now I'm like, I was an idiot. But it was maybe 18 to 24 months ago. And it had to do with both of my sons and talking to them and some things that, my older one goes through and my younger one. And they literally came to me and they said, no. Sometimes, and it had to do with something that my older one needed. And he goes, sometimes I need a day because I'm so stressed and I'm feeling this way. I need a day to take a breath. And he said, why, if it is a sick day, do I have to have a bacteria or a virus? If I feel mentally worn down that I need to recharge, can I do that? And I went, I never thought of that before. So it's kind of changed my evaluation of when and how I look, because before I was going to show up. I've showed up regardless. I have not just once, on several different occasions on shifts, I have thrown up in the trash can during a show.
Please.
So that's as far. I mean, that's how.
Please don't.
I know it's ridiculous. But that's how far I would take it at times, and so that's kind of
It's an impressive work ethic. It's much better than what I think I see
impressive.
coming out of this next generation. But that's it. So when I talked to Kelly, this is how the sausage gets made, folks. When I talked to Kelly about, hey, you coming in? And on Wednesday, it was a no-brainer. I was like, buddy, I'm going to sound worse than I sounded on Tuesday. And that was unbearable for me. And he said, okay, let's do it. We'll get Jimmy. Jimmy will come in. Jimmy very much, and I appreciate him very much for being this way. He is the Mikey of life cereal for covering radio shows.
Fantastic.
I don't want to do it. I'll do it. I'll do it.
Yep.
It's a great character trait.
It's great to have. Yeah.
And then when Wednesday, I was like, it's a roll of the dice, man. I'm on the meds now. They've prescribed me things I can't pronounce.
Hey, all right.
In Scrabble, if you had the letters for them, you win the game with one word, because it's got every 10-point word or letter in there. But I've been on those things. And I told Kelly, I said, it's a roll of the dice, man. I could wake up tomorrow, feel like $1 million. I don't, by the way. And we could go, or I could wake up and sound worse. He's like, no, let's just go. Let's see Jimmy. I was like, great. I love Jimmy. Let's do Jimmy. Jimmy does a great job. Jimmy gets great guests. And so that worked out. And then it was a call yesterday. And I said, man, I'm feeling pretty good. I cannot vouch for my voice, but I think it's better than Tuesday. And I think we're on the mend. And by Monday, I will sound almost like myself again.
Excellent.
And he said, well, let's do it. So we pulled this thing together. And I'm sure folks were like, Billy started the show. And
you should have started. I'm like, yes, you're very afraid. George isn't here. Yeah. I scared them a bit, but I told them you're on the way up. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, it's not a fun. I don't want anyone to come away from this like, George, sleep in. It's like, no, it's not like that.
No, not at all.
This has been the year of, and I blame no one except the gremlins. This has just been the year of snake bit tech for us in a way. And I'll tell you exactly what happened. Got this fantastic remote setup that we've used all last year. Most of you wouldn't have known I've used it other than the fact that I said, hey, I'm in Kentucky or I'm in Florida or whatever. And it relies on this 5G super cool device that picks up on the cell signal and gives us great connectivity. I turn it on today. I'm chitty chatting with Billy. And then it says automatic software update.
That's never a good thing.
Never. No. I didn't ask you to do that. I guess that's the word automatic. Please stop doing that.
No, not now. Yeah.
And then things just went kaput. So there was a moment where I said, I'm not doing it from home. I'm just going to hop in the car, drive well within the speed limit. And then that was the reason for it. So you folks ought to know that stuff. I don't want you to ever think I'm blowing off my duties here. Good. I just got up late or something.
Now, how are the meds treating you? Are they helping? What do you think?
I can't tell. I mean, my heart beats like I'm a little rabbit trapped in the corner somewhere. But it seems to have had an big impact on my fever. It made the fever go away, which is nice.
Good.
And the voice is starting to come back, which is nice. I mean, I just have to get back to right before next Thursday afternoon when I go wheels up for the Middle East.
I always, okay, we're going to go on the Wayback Machine, and we're going to sit down with little
December?
Billy when he's in entering middle school, and he's finding out that, there's some antibiotics and stuff that he has to take. And it's because he has a real strep throat problem. And they're telling him that, yeah, sometimes there are some side effects with these, medications that he's taking. Young little Billy gets very excited. Really excited about this because, why? Young little Billy is a little bit of a nerd and kind of a comic book kid. And in comic book world, side effects mean cool things like superpowers. So I'm just telling you how disappointed I was when I found out that all these medications that we have, this long list of side effects, none of them include things like possible X-ray vision, may cause you to fly, experience portions of super strength. No. They're always crappy side effects.
Affinity for snakes or like Parseltongue or something. Did you get any of that?
No, I think that's just a mental illness. Yeah, personally.
I'm sorry, because I would like to know that, at some point you take the wrong combination of meds and it's a positive.
I know. How cool would it be? Like, I feel crappy. Yeah, I'm going to be out of school for, or work for a couple of days, but got this X-ray vision, so it's not that all bad. So
I'm 6 inches taller.
Exactly.
Bam, I'm back.
Yes, that would be
Billy,
something
you look
there.
different.
Yeah.
Do I?
Do I know? Yes.
Bam.
Yeah, all of a sudden, full head of hair. This is wonderful. That's why are they always the crappy side effects? I just was disappointed that as a kid. I always think about that. And even now when I'm taking the medication, I'm like, I still go through the list, just waiting someday to say, may glow in the dark. I just want something. I'm looking for something small. It doesn't have to be a big superpower.
The number of disclaimers on these things.
Oh, yeah.
Too. And the pills themselves,
yes,
and the box can't hold all the words.
Yeah,
so
not at all.
It has to have a separate tissue thin kind of paper that you unfold like a map, like a giant map, and you lay it out. It's the size of your living room.
Yeah.
And there's no chance that the attorneys who forced them to draft this really believe that anybody except a suing attorney will ever read these things.
Oh, it's like the ads. It's like the commercial. I love watching the ads for the drugs on TV because they've got to buy a 2-minute spot because they can't do it in one because they've got to do all the disclaimer stuff. But my favorite part is where they have to read all the side effects. You've got to figure out a visual. And I always love the pairing of the visual with a long read of side effects because they're talking about all the horrible things you can do. But there's Jane walking in the park with her dog and she's happy. And there's Bob and he sees his neighbor and waves while they're working on their fence. And they're like, I'm doing great things. And you're like, here's all the horrible crap that can happen to you.
One of them like your junk could fall off, or something. Like, and the guy's just skipping along. I'm like, what?
I love that junk juxtaposition. I think it's just hilarious.
I don't. So we'll know more. I mean, I'm only a couple days into the meds. Everything could go wrong at some point. I'm no longer a spring chicken.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Graham is fully recovered as far as I can tell. He did both,
of course,
track and baseball yesterday. So Jeff, on the other hand, is wrecked. Has not been to school this semester. It started this week.
Oh man.
And when I talked to him last night, he was like, I don't feel at all different than 4 days ago.
Oh, geez.
And I'm like, oh, buddy, we'll get through it. I just don't know what it is. It's something weird. Not flu, not COVID. Both doctors have confirmed all that. Just don't know what it is. And I don't know where we got it.
I do got to share a story with you. I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent because I know we're coming up on break time and we got to do the silly stuff and things here in a second. But I've got to tell you a huge parent win for me yesterday. Something we can share. Huge parent win. This is a giant parent win. Very rarely do you get a time in which you can increase your standing in your children's eyes.
Yeah.
There are very few times in which you can show them you can do things better than they can, especially when they're teenagers.
That's
and it gets worse when they're in college. So my college-age son yesterday, his iPhone wasn't working. He got the black screen of death. Wasn't working at all. Now, he did do some troubleshooting in the morning and had contacted me and mom and talked about it. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have to go to the store. We're going to have to do this. So I then go home and I say, okay, can you show me the troubleshooting things? He's like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. And so, I start going through the stuff and he's just like, Dad, I've done that. What? I've done that too. He's total indignation about the fact that I am repeating the processes that he has already gone through.
But Dad, did you start like you were the fix-it voice from India on the other end of the phone? Like, have you turned on and off your device several times?
I did ask that, but I said, is it powered up? He's like, Dad. I'm like, well, I'm just wondering if you've had the charger in all night. Could it be out of battery? Dad, fine. Okay, I understand. At least it's not, a company with expletives afterwards. So I'm like, okay, I understand. So we get to the point where I got the iPhone. I go through some of the troubleshooting stuff, and I'm like, oh man, okay, we're probably gonna have to go to the store. And I say, go upstairs and jump in the shower and get ready, and then we'll go. So he goes upstairs, takes a shower. In the meantime, I'm going through the little troubleshooting things, and I get to something where it's like, push the button, push the button, push the button. He's done all the stuff he's done. And it's like, push this, hold this, push this, push this, hold this, push this, and hold. And I'm sitting there, and then bling, there comes the apple.
Oh my good Lord.
There comes the apple. And I'm like, nah.
Did you say anything or just look at each other with that sort of?
What I did is he's in the shower. So he comes downstairs, and I'm like, and I'm sitting down, and so I'm doing some other stuff because I have a radio show I got to do for Westwood One. So I'm prepping that. And he's like, I thought we were going to go. And I looked at him with a huge smile and said, we don't have to because your phone is working. And he's like, what would you do? And so he goes over and looks at it, and it's working just fine. He's like, what'd you do? And I'm like, I did the thing where you push the buttons and then hold and then push the buttons. And I did that too. And I said, I know. I said, but I did it better.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know why I did it better? And I told him, because I am of the generation that had to figure out, in order to play our video games, we had to go on the cartridge.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
That's how guerrilla we are in trying to figure out how these electronic devices work. So I'm just telling him, I got much more experience dealing with crappy electronics and weird things happening.
Man, that's such a great reference.
Yeah. And he just was like, I hate you. I'm like, you are welcome.
Blowing out to the cartridges, to the Atari or the Intellivision or whatever. I've forgotten all about that.
I know, exactly. And I'm like, no, that's what we had to do in order to make our video games work. I have a little bit more, the up, down, left, right, A, B, A, B. Yeah, we had to do that kind of stuff. So when we had to push the buttons in a certain order and hold the things, I'm better. So it was nice. It was a little moment of superiority. You don't get that much with your teenagers. You never do.
But for the next however many days, maybe even weeks,
yeah,
every once in a while, you can just look at him and say, how's the phone?
I am going to,
and he'll know exactly what you're talking about.
I texted him that this morning.
Yeah, if you're reading this, you're welcome.
Exactly.
That's an awesome story, man. I appreciate that. 1 sec, folks. I have a cough button here that exists. I think that's what they call it. I never need to use it until now. Here's what I want you to do is go ahead and hop on that YouTube channel. It is up and live and running. Something we haven't been able to get completely functional for Big Daddy when he's operating from the remote world. Although we're going to keep trying on that. I want to get that thing done. But go to that YouTube channel, search for The George Brauchler Show, subscribe, like it. If there's a button for Make Sweet Love to it, click that too, and then email it to some friends, get some other folks on the party wagon here. Because of that description I gave you of what took place to me running up the stairs getting here, no hat. I had no time to get hat selection. I thought I was going to have the drive time to kind of mill through a bunch of stuff, but that's okay. We have a lot of show left in front of us for this last show of this first, I guess it would be the first full week of 2023, but not a full week of you and me. That'll have to take place at another time. You can always get us on the texts. And the way you text us is to go to 710KNUS, the app, or 710knus.com. That's a great way, and we get texts already that are coming in here. And then you can call us. That's the best, 303-696-1971. There's a lot of things to talk about, but the only way to get started in any conversation during the show is we have to do the FCC-mandated Thorpe Report and then the Salem Media mandated You Choose the News for the end of the week. I've missed it. Being out 2 weeks, folks, or 2 days, folks, I'm telling you, it's like 2 weeks to be away from the job here and be away from you guys. I'm just happy. Thank you for all the things saying, welcome back. I hope you feel better. I don't, but thank you for those well wishes. It'll happen. It's just not going to happen today. Stick around. We'll be back with the good stuff. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler right back with you here at 710 KNUS. Still on the mend. Thanks for being along that journey. It occurs to me, Billy, this is the first time I've been in the studio in a week.
Yeah,
because I DD'd out of here on Thursday last to head out to Florida. That was a blast with the two boys. And then we did the show remotely on Friday. That was also very interesting.
Yeah.
That was a very interesting show.
Yeah.
And then come back Monday, I had some stuff in Florida. Tuesday, come back, and I'm crawling out of the grave to do the show. And now we're here.
I know. It's like the band's back together. It's kind of nice. It's nice to have you in the studio.
Man, it's good to be back here. I imagine whoever sits in
this
this chair, Deborah Flora, after me is going to end up coming down with something akin to the Andromeda strain.
I'm just saying that if you want to lick the hand rest there on the side, I will not say anything about it.
I only do it on Tuesdays. I feel like it's a Tuesday good luck charm.
That's true.
We used to, during the vid when we were doing this, remember, we would have cans of Lysol that would just blanket this place. It was like sitting in a hospital room trying to do this thing. Mercifully, we've gotten rid of all those things that might protect Deborah from me. No, I promise, Deborah, if you're listening, and I know you're not, we're going to get this cleaned up in a jiffy. Here's where we're at.
Oh yeah, and you get to have the bad coffee too. I mean, Oh no, you're doing water today.
So I did water. I'm doing water. Yeah. I don't know what coffee does to the vocal cords and stuff, but
let's find out.
Given all the meds that I've been taking, I'm like, maybe caffeine is one I can substitute out for something. But interestingly, it's been 3 days since I've had any coffee, and I'm like, how long can I keep this going before either one, I just nod off on the road, or two, I hurt someone.
Just give me the warm beam water now.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see, man. If I can do this, maybe next week I'm gonna give this another shot. It's not really a New Year's resolution. We'll just see what's gonna happen. The other thing I can tell you that's gonna happen. So I'm gonna turn this bad boy over to the Big Billy, because we've got the Thorpe Report, which is the news you gotta have, and then you choose the news, which is the news we want to have. Billy.
All righty. Good morning, sir. Glad to have you back in the studio. Glad you're feeling better. And we're going to talk about the Inglewood Library. They have joined what appears to be a trend. Yes, with the libraries. They also have shut down because of meth bathrooms. Victor Rachel, the city's public works director, said they decided last week to test for meth residue after seeing what happened in Boulder. And surprise, the bathrooms in their North Civic Center lobby and second floor bathrooms are now closed.
Buddy, is this going to be a thing where every public library, like Highlands Ranch Library, we go there?
Yeah.
Is that what's going to happen? Every library has now become like meth central?
I think so. And I think part of it is that for a number of times we have been understanding and accommodating of those people who, and I'm doing this in air quotes, experience homelessness and come in, and we thought we were being charitable and letting these people, maybe clean off and have a nice, safe place to go potty. That's not what they were doing. That's what we're finding out. And surprise, the homeless that are not seeking treatment are actually trying to find a way to forward their addiction. So again, we probably could have predicted this, but you live and you learn.
It's just so ridiculous, man. We're doing meth remediation.
At a library.
Libraries.
Yes, libraries.
God,
Which, I mean, the worst thing when you and I were kids, the worst thing about the library was that damn card catalog. I hated that.
Oh my God. Dewey Decimal. Where'd you go, my friend? I mean, it's all computerized now.
I got tested on the stupid Dewey Decimal system. Tested.
I remember those, the long drawers, and you'd have to flip through.
Oh, God. Okay. Last year, city hired an in-house security monitor to monitor what's going on at the libraries and help librarians focus on their jobs. Until recently, the city council approved funding to hire more staff and have a bigger presence on the floor. Right now, staff's focused on hiring a remediation coordinator. The city has spent about $100,000 on testing initial cleanup, and they're expecting to spend at least another $125,000. Again, let's just review. Again, I understand we were being nice to the people that were experiencing homelessness. However, they seem to have taken advantage of our feelings. And because of that, it's now going to cost probably upwards of $225,000 to clean the mess up.
Good grief. So that's coming out of our pockets.
Yep. And I'm just saying that money could have gone to programs to put these people in treatment. Step Denver. Okay. An off-duty
Denver, yeah.
an off-duty Aurora police officer has been arrested after allegedly assaulting a woman with disabilities following an argument earlier this week. Douglas Haran, 32, was taken into custody and booked into the Arapahoe County Detention Facility on a charge of third-degree assault against an at-risk adult. It's a Class 5 felony. He reportedly punched a 49-year-old woman with disabilities several times in the head and the face. Now, deputies responded to the area near East Briarwood Circle around 9 o'clock in the evening after first responders received a 911 call about a fight that was happening near an apartment complex. Arriving officers learned that the officer was coming home in his Jeep and he was off duty when he observed the woman that was walking her dog in the middle of the road. Because, of course, that's what you do.
Right.
Because the dog was not on a leash, the officer drove very slowly behind her as her dog was walking as he approached his parking garage. This is according to an affidavit. The woman then stopped walking, turned around to yell at the man following her, which happened to be off-duty police officer. And, of course, we are adults in this situation. So what do? We start yelling back. So we yell at each other, and eventually the off-duty officer stops his Jeep and then begins to get out of the Jeep and get face-to-face and argue with the woman.
What's the dog doing?
I don't know. In the meantime, the wife goes around behind the woman, and then witnesses observe Douglas punch the woman in the left side of her face with his right hand. She fell to the ground.
God.
This is the part that gets me. He then gets on top of her and punched her in the head a few more times. Reports are up to 5 more times. Injured woman was taken to the local hospital. Medical staff determined she had fresh red marks, bumps, bruising, everything was consistent with what the witness had described. Deputies arrested the off-duty officer, and the Aurora Police Department has opened an internal affairs investigation. He was placed on immediate and indefinite suspension without pay, according to a police department spokesperson. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I just keep looking at the idea of, okay, the first punch is not okay, but she goes down. What are you doing getting on top of her? What I mean,
because she could get up, Billy. That's obvious. She could have gotten back up.
Seriously, oh man.
I'm interested. It must have been a small dog.
Yeah,
because there's people that are walking some dogs because they love their dogs and for fun, but also for protection.
Oh yeah.
And if someone were to approach them, the dog would be like, "I got this."
Oh yeah.
Don't worry about this. I got this.
My dog is a particular breed. She's a mid-sized dog. She's a little chunky, but she should be around 50 pounds. She's a little bit above that. So she's a medium-sized dog. But she's a herding dog, not like an Australian Shepherd herding. She's a herding dog that protects the herd. So she has a strong desire to protect the family. And if someone comes towards me and she thinks they're not kosher, she goes from 0 to 10. She's like, it's go time. I am ready.
Yeah.
I even have to watch it if joggers are coming too fast at us. She's viewing it as someone's running at us. And she'll look at me like, do I got this?
Yeah, can I eat them?
I will take this. Yeah, and that she does that. So yeah, you're right.
Interesting, but this guy's judgment. This dude's in uniform.
Yeah,
like this cannot be the most stressful situation he's endured, especially in Denver.
Yeah, not at all. Especially because what he'd done.
My good Lord.
Yeah,
man. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, what are you doing?
And that's aside from the disability thing, man. She could have been a completely healthy 27-year-old.
Yeah, even that doesn't make it okay.
What the hell?
Yeah, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. Also, we've got a man that has died after shooting in Denver's 5 Points neighborhood. It happened yesterday. Denver Police Department issued a tweet around 7:30 p.m. About a shooting in the area of 21st and Lawrence Street. So that guy's died. Elsewhere, a girl that was injured in a shooting in Northwest Denver early on Wednesday has also passed away. A few details about the shooting have been released. Police just saying it happened on East 46th Avenue, near the intersection of Peoria, and it was near Montbello's neighborhood.
No crimes here.
Yeah, not at all. We've also got a homicide investigation underway. A 57-year-old man from Grand Junction also has been sentenced to life in federal prison after he was convicted of multiple drug charges, including distribution of fentanyl, that resulted in death. It's the longest sentence handed down in Colorado federal court for such a crime so far. There also was a man sentenced Thursday for 10 years in the Department of Corrections for trafficking a minor for commercial sex work starting in late 2020. This is coming out of the 17th Judicial District. Robert Stensky, 33, pled guilty to the crime, which began in October of 2020. A minor who was 17-year-old at the time was introduced to him through a friend who was also being trafficked, according to the spokesperson.
Jeez.
And finally, icy roads and sidewalks aren't the only remnants of our recent winter storms in Denver. Overflowing trash cans across the metro are also a problem. So this is a hint here. Waste Management is saying that people have gone weeks in places without scheduled trash pickups. So Waste Management has announced the company is going to waive their associated fees for extra trash set out for pickup in the next scheduled service.
Nice.
So yes, anything you want to get rid of, put it out. They are taking it for free.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, you got to know that.
Great effort.
I have tried to have them take extra stuff, and they leave it behind. As I feel like they're insulting me, like they're just saying, "No, I will not take your extra box. Take that and break it down and put it back in the." It's just kind of stupid. So. Yeah, I don't know about that one, but I'm definitely going to take advantage of that next week. And speaking of taking advantage of things, yes, it is time that we take advantage of your morning and waste a little time because it is time for us to play You Choose the News, everybody's favorite radio news game show where we have scoured the interwebs. I've been at this for days now. I have found ridiculous stories. We have put some stupid headlines with them, and we play this fake radio news game. Yes, I didn't have time to get a sponsor lined up this morning because things were difficult.
Don't believe me.
And I was fixing an iPhone yesterday. So, there was stuff I had to do. But now we must play the game. Alrighty, George, here are your choices. For this Friday, headline number 1, fugitive doggies. Headline number 2, questionably effective mask. Headline number 3, did you read the sign? And headline number 4, criminal arts and crafts. Alrighty, so your choices this morning are fugitive doggies, questionably effective mask, did you read the sign, and criminal arts and crafts.
You know the way to my heart, my friend. Will have to do the criminal arts and crafts.
Criminal arts and crafts. Here we're going to Brevard County, Florida. Of course, we're talking about 2 Florida men who recently were pulled over by police because they were suspected of being in a stolen vehicle. Yes, police pulled over Anthony Sosa, 31, and Chad Dulett, 36. And eventually did take them into custody, and the gentlemen are facing multiple charges of grand theft and burglary. But why? What led the police to this random stop to corral these 2 criminals? Well, it was because the 2 men had stolen a pickup truck and then had written on a piece of cardboard where the license plate should have been the word stolen truck.
What?
Yes, they took a piece of cardboard. The truck didn't have a valid license plate, so they just took a piece of cardboard and wrote stolen truck on it and then drove away.
This wasn't some part of a YouTube thing, where it's like, and your next task is.
Exactly. So that's the idea is that they thought that was gonna, I don't know what they were thinking. I have no clue. Still.
Yeah, like I said, we just don't catch the smart ones.
No, you don't. I keep thinking of the conversation between 2 of them. Well, we could make a fake license plate. Oh, you are brilliant, sir. What should we put on the fake license plate? Should we make it look like Florida?
Let's be funny.
Just write stolen.
Let's be funny.
Yeah, let's
just
write
say stolen car.
Alrighty, next choice, sir. Fugitive doggies, questionably effective mask, or did you read the sign?
Well, I'm living the mask world right now, so let's go questionably effective.
Questionably effective mask. Here we're traveling to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where we are going to meet a young porch pirate who has been arrested primarily because of his unusual and, according to police, questionably effective mask. The Tulsa Police Department were made aware of this porch pirate in a tweet just a couple of days ago. According to the police department, they were provided with surveillance images of the suspect, and it helped them find the suspect's vehicle and identify him. But the reason they were able to recognize him and connect him to previous porch pirate cases was because of his questionably effective mask. What, pray tell, was our porch pirate wearing in order to conceal his identity? A pair of women's underwear.
What?
Yes.
What kind of?
The gentleman put his pair of women's underwear over his face and figured then nobody would be able to recognize him. Obviously, his clever plots did not work.
Are these like granny panties, or can we get some other? Is that Victoria's Secret thing?
I'm just saying you are showing way too much interest in what kind of panties.
Well, I'm just wondering what it could conceal.
I think I'm worried about you. I think we should talk about this off the air. So the guy's facing 5 counts of larceny, knowingly concealing stolen property, and grand larceny. I just look at it and keep thinking, yes, panties on my head. Nobody recognized me. And then people did. Does that mean they've seen you with these things on your face before? I mean,
maybe that's his
so many
thing.
Choices. Yeah.
Some people wear a beret.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, oh, that's Steve. Steve always wearing those things. He changes them, seasonally for Victoria.
Some dude maybe that's the new look. And you can't judge, Billy.
No, you can't. Well, you can, but just not out loud. Okay. Now, final choice this morning, sir. Fugitive doggies, or did you read the sign?
Did you read the sign?
Yeah. Did you read the sign? Well, amid a recent spike in gun violence, some community members have figured out maybe in this neighborhood we have a way to stop the violence. Anacostia Coordinating Council is partnering with an organization based in Ward 8 in Washington, D.C., and the way they're going to stop the rampant gun violence in their neighborhood is put up a bunch of red and white signs, and the signs are going to say, "Thou shalt not kill." Yes, the panel evidently thinks that the reason people are going around getting all rooty-tooty, shooty is because they simply don't know you shouldn't be killing someone. That somehow someone didn't explain to them the 10 Commandments, or just say, hey, you know, when you kill someone, that's a bad thing to do. Yes.
Does it work?
I can't imagine it. I mean, seriously, I
mean, wouldn't that be enough? Wouldn't that be awesome if it was just enough?
I know, but just think about I don't expect that if I put a sign on my house that says no burglary, the criminals are going to be like, oh, the sign. Okay, I got to go. I just,
like I was about to, but that's a good reminder.
I know.
I shall not.
Yeah. I just look at it like, well, but then again, every time I am in a hotel room, I always put the do not disturb sign on the door handle on the outside, but I always make sure the Spanish side is facing out, because do not disturb in Spanish looks like no lo moleste. And that seems very important to me.
So the other rooms, of course, are
yes.
moleste, okay.
Yes, moleste, okay. Me no lo moleste.
No, not me.
Yes,
please.
I don't want the no moleste. So, so maybe the sign can work, yes.
That's great.
Well, that's it. That is the end of You Choose the News. As always, George is your perennial winner. I'm glad to have him back in the studio, and I am a big, giant loser. Yes, we'll try to find a sponsor that'll actually give us money to this silly thing on Monday, so stay tuned. But until then, enjoy your Friday the 13th and embrace all of your superstitions. Back to you, sir.
Well, Billy, thank you so much. It's something I've missed. I know the listeners have missed too, based on some of the texts here, which is all great that we're getting juiced right back up here to normal. When we come back, another local story. Drunk on duty turns out to not be a bar to promotion. Did you know that? Not in law enforcement. And I don't want to say anything tying it to the story that Billy gave, but that guy, Billy, look, before we go, as you're telling the rest of the stuff, I look up this dude. He's from Aurora, police officer. I don't know why I thought it was Denver.
Okay.
His wife was in the car with him. She too dismounted the car to take on this woman with her.
I know.
Oh my God.
She's providing backup. She's like, I will get her. I will get her. What kind of a threat did they think this woman was posing? Please.
I don't know. But I mean, there's not going to be body cam because the dude was off duty, but unbelievable, man. I mean, if you're the new interim chief, Acevedo, I hope these aren't the things that you look at this and the next story we're going to talk about after the break and go, do I want this job?
Yeah, is this what I want to do?
And who are these guys?
Yeah. How did this happen?
This guy comes in, though, I think at a good time where the bar is just low enough with some of the other things that have gone on that he can say, I can tell you this, when I leave office, this stuff won't be happening. I mean,
hope not.
That would be great. When we come back, I'll fill you in on that. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Look at me on the cover of a magazine, and you know everything is free when you're naked in my limousine. You see them looking my way, they know I'm here to stay. You know life is good when you're the king of Hollywood. Look at me on the cover of a magazine.
George Brauchler right back with you here for the final segment of the first hour, the final show of the first-ish full week of 2023. George Brauchler on the George Show. I wanted to update you on something that sort of flowed from a story, only because it's the same police department that Billy talked about. You may remember a story that emerged way back in 2018, and that is, I believe it was sometime in, I think it was 2018. If I'm wrong on that date, then you're just going to have to, I don't know, blame me for being an idiot. But there was an Aurora police sergeant who was contacted in front of Buckley, maybe it was 2019, Buckley Air Force Base. I don't even think it was Buckley Space Base at the time. And he was passed out drunk in his car. Now, at the time, nobody knew he was drunk except the guy that arrived on scene to check on him. First guy on scene was the deputy chief of police. He rolls up, initially detects what he describes as a slight odor of alcohol, runs back to his car, calls in, hey, this guy needs medical assistance. He's not responding. And by the time he comes back, that alcohol smell appears to have dissipated, or so he says. Paramedics show up on scene, 5 different, I think, medical dudes with experience exceeding 100 years. Look at this guy. They're never told that alcohol was on board. And sure enough, they never detect any alcohol on board. They think this guy may have had a seizure. Take him to the hospital. Now, somebody sends out the DUI folks to the hospital, and they're going to come and they're going to look for a vial of blood to draw, which makes total sense. Deputy chief waves him off. Says no need to do it. Guy ends up getting a hospital BAC, which, folks, you ought to know, completely inadmissible in court. I cannot admit that blood alcohol thing in court. That exceeds any possible sobriety level that we have, not just legal. I mean, in your mind. Guy is totally drunk, but there is no evidence of it. So he ends up having to go give a statement, and there's a specific law, a rule that exists that you advise an officer, and you can threaten the officer with the loss of his or her job if they don't tell you things that happen on the job. There's a good policy reason for it, and that is you'd rather know what wrongdoing cops were involved in so you can figure out a way to address it and prevent it than you aren't having them clam up, and now you've got this cop you don't know what to do with, you don't know what happened. And he gives it up, says, oh yeah, I went home. I guzzled a bottle of vodka in the middle of the day in his uniform, got in the car, drove, passed out right in front of Buckley. Admits it. That statement, because it's compelled, I can't use it in court. Of course, Aurora never tells me any of this. It's like 9 months later, I get a call from Brian Moss. Brian Moss says, hey, I want to get you on camera. I want to interview you about a guy named Nate Meier out in Aurora. He was a drunk sergeant, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, what are you talking about? Instantly get off the phone, call the then chief of police, who's since retired. He goes, yeah, awkward conversation. Really awkward. Should have sent it to you, didn't send it to you. Sent it to me. I sent it to my guys, my best DUI guys. And I go, you find a way to hold this guy accountable. Of course, they look around. They're like, we can't. We got nothing. We got no paramedics detecting alcohol. We got no signs of indication other than that first initial statement. No blood draw we can get in. We can't use his statements against him. We got a passed out officer with a faint odor of alcohol. That's what we got. So I do a big press conference on it. Dude gets demoted, I think, down to officer or something. And he's put on some desk job for a while. Well, lo and behold, dude's just been promoted to detective in Aurora. That cannot make any sense. I mean, for those that are out there that are like, is there a double standard for police and the public? The answer should be yes, but that cuts against the police making these kinds of mistakes. Instead, it looks like, wait, what? Like if you have a job, how about this? If you're an airline pilot and you got caught in the same situation, you're drunk behind, oh, I don't know, you're in the cockpit. I don't know what the procedure is, but if you're about to climb onto that plane, and let's call it the plane called the Aurora Community, do you want to trust yourself to a pilot who comes on the air and says, hey, everybody, buckle up, we're taking off for Atlanta. Want to let you know that thing that happened a few years ago where I was drunk in the cockpit, all taken care of. What? So now we've promoted this guy. You know who doesn't stand for it? Friend of the show, Aurora City Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky. She's issued some strong statements. This is all mandated by the way the civil service works in Aurora. It had to happen. It had been so many years since the incident. He'd taken the test. He performed well on the test. He was next in the pecking order. It's unstoppable. You can't stop this. What kind of system is that for police? So when you hear me talk to these city council members about the need for civil service reform, this has got to be part of it, right? Dude was admittedly drunk on the job, guzzled booze as a supervisor, and is not only in retention of his job and his retirement, but has not been promoted to detective. What are you out there to detect? I got to tell you, if you're the DA, his name's John Kellner, you got to question what this guy's going to be able to bring you on the job. That's what's going on in Aurora, folks. I'm impressed with Chief Acevedo so far, but this ain't him. He can't stop this. I'm sure he'd love to have the powers to stop it. But so now Nate Meier is going to go from drunk behind the wheel to detective on the street. Unbelievable. Listen, when we come back, I want to talk to you about this blowing up Biden story thing. I didn't get to the past 2 days, but there's new sound on it. And I talked a lot about the Trump thing. I'm going to do the same thing for Mr. Biden. You stick around. It's George Brauchler on the George Show, 710 KUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler right back with you here, hour 2 of 4 on this Friday edition of the George Show on 710 KNUS. Getting ready to jump into another topic, but there's one that's still percolating a bit here on the text. Happy to take your text at the 710knus.com website or 710KNUS app. We also have a caller on the line. Not even sure. Richard may just be updating us on stuff. Richard, you're on 710. What do you think, sir?
How you doing, George? So there was a fire in South Jeffco.
When?
A couple of years ago at a foster home called Shiloh House.
Shiloh House, okay.
And yeah, it's interesting that I talked to Marinelli the other day. And
are you talking about newly elected Sheriff Reggie Marinelli?
Yeah, she's something else. Yeah, she's part of the same crew with you and the FBI who tried to kill
Richard. Yeah, Richard seems like he might need some help. Richard there at 703 is experiencing some sort of break with reality. But thanks for listening, Richard.
Hey, that was fun. And I got to tell you, Judd, that's the people on the radio didn't hear that Richard said a colorful metaphor, and then we had to cut him off. But I've got to tell you that this was always a thing in radio that I always said that early in the show, if someone is on the air and curses, we're going to have a good show. So no pressure. Just saying, no pressure.
Yeah. Is that how it works? Is it like the opposite of walking under a ladder or a black cat crossing your path?
Yeah, exactly. It is. Hey, out of that, do you have any superstitions? Do you? Because I talked about, when you were riding up in the elevator this morning, I talked a little bit about it. Do you have superstitions? Because today is Friday the 13th.
Oh, crap, man.
Yeah, that spooky day.
I didn't even put that together.
Yeah.
Never gave it a thought. Superstitions. I don't know if you can call it a superstition. I mean, it's tied into a little bit of faith, but I cannot take off from a flight without just a certain prayer that I say before I go.
Oh, nice.
And it's more out of fear, but also faith. But I don't know if that's superstition. I don't know if you can call that superstition, but yeah, I don't know.
That's weird. Yeah, I had one, and for me, the only time it really ever, and I told the audience earlier, was getting ready for my soccer matches. There were certain things I would do in order, and certain things that would happen, and it was just a matter of, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, you did this out of order, I can't play. No, but there was a process that I went through in order to get ready to play. And then there were certain things. The other one was I never wanted to step on the touch line going on or off the field. I thought that was bad luck. That was the only thing that was really the real hard superstition. But the other one was, it was how I was getting ready. I'd have to put this equipment on first, then this equipament, then this
wear
equipment.
the same jock strap every game until you lose, a rally jock strap.
No, didn't do that one. No, that one wasn't necessarily important to me, but it was
of course,
it was the procedure. It was, shin guards, talk how we did it and what we were doing during the process to kind of get me in the right mental headspace. But that's about it. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of something. I mean, other than I have to do this thing when I leave a room where I have to turn in a circle a couple times, but no, I'm kidding. There's nothing like that. I really don't know that I have any. Going over train tracks.
Yeah.
Raising my feet off the pedals.
Ah, nice.
And this is going to sound stupid too. And looking to touch a screw.
Oh, really?
And it's usually up by the headrest, the thing that bolts it in there.
That's a superstition. Yeah.
And it was, I don't know that if I failed to do it, I feel like, oh my God. But when I was a younger guy, a buddy of mine, who's a teacher at Devlin, a guy named Corey Rickman, was doing it. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, it's good luck, man. So, when we were kids, we'd do it. And pretty soon I'm doing it all the time. And I'm like, I don't know why. I just do it.
Oh, that's great.
The other thing he got me doing, and I've abandoned this, by the way, is that when you take a lollipop out, you undo the wrapper.
Yeah.
If the wrapper has the full, I'm going to say Indian, Native American guy with the headdress and the bow and the arrow, if he has a full one of those, not cut off in any way, it's good luck. You fold it up. You fold it up so that the dude's exposed on the top, and you put it in the heel of your shoe.
Oh, wow. That's weird.
This is so bizarre. That one didn't last as long because it was really a lot of effort. So
the thing for me, those, now I remember those are Tootsie Pops. That's a Tootsie
yeah,
Pop
Tootsie Pop. Yeah.
Now the thing I was looking for is you can find them on some of them, on some of the Tootsie Pop wrappers. That Indian guy is shooting at a star. And the star ones were the special ones for me. I'd look for the arrows with a star on them.
And did you do anything special with them, or just throw them away? Like, that was neat.
I would make fun of my friends going, I got the better one, and then throw it away.
Yeah, that's right. Listen, to revisit the topic that we ended with, I talked to you about Nate Meier, who's gone from drunk behind the wheel to detective on the street, text her in here. And I appreciate the defensive position they're taking with this person, but I mean, you got to hear this exchange. And I'm sharing it with you. I don't know who this person is. It says, alcoholism is a disease. He received treatment and maybe he's shown exemplary behavior since then. Can't he be redeemed? And my answer was yes, but not as a police officer. Truth is, in my opinion, had the system worked the way it was supposed to, and had Nate Meier been treated like you or me or Billy would have been treated. I mean, folks, picture yourselves drunk behind the wheel right out by Buckley Air Force Base, and the deputy chief of police comes up and smells an odor of alcohol. Do you for a millisecond believe that there would not have been a DUI investigation? Raise your hand if you think that this guy got treated like everybody else. I don't. He got special treatment because he was wearing a badge. This isn't even an off-duty guy who was shown. This is a guy who's on the job getting paid to protect and serve. This dude makes that decision. No quote-unquote alcoholism disease can justify that. But what should have happened is dude should have been investigated. Dude should have had a blood draw or given the opportunity to deny one and take the refusal. And the dude should have been investigated, charged with a DUI months before, and probably would have been disciplined to include termination. That's what should have happened, because that's what happens to you and me. But it didn't. He got special treatment. And because he beat the system, because the system helped him beat it, this guy now is in a position to get promoted through a system that doesn't care about the alcoholism part. It just says, you fit all the boxes. It's mandatory. Civil service has to happen. I'm sorry. I want the guy to do better. I'm not looking for this guy's life to be ruined, but forgive me if I think that Aurora can do better than a drunk sergeant on duty with a loaded gun on his hip that he'd have been prosecuted for too. Drunk with a gun. That's a real misdemeanor charge. He'd have been prosecuted for that too. Dude should be doing something else with his life. He should not be on the street. That's my opinion. Now, I don't know. Maybe this guy will go on to do great things. Maybe he'll prove that that second chance was worth it. But I don't think you and I should cross our fingers and hope that it works out. Because alcoholism and police work, come on, man. You just can't use that as an excuse. So the response was, so if you're a diabetic on duty and choose not to take your insulin and have a seizure behind the wheel and take out a family, is that not the same? One, I think you should be held accountable for not taking your insulin. Yeah, you should be held accountable. And if that means firing you, fire you. If you're unsafe unless you do a thing and you don't do that thing, you can't be on the job. Just like if you're on the job and you do something that makes you unsafe, you can't be on the job, man. This isn't like, I don't know how to describe it. This isn't like working at a library, letting dudes go into the bathroom and fire up some meth. These are cops, folks. These are people. This guy was in a uniform. Had Aurora Theater Part 2 happened right at that time, this drunk dude is nowhere to be helpful. In fact, he's sucking resources away from the rest of the community because dude's got a problem with the bottle. And if it sounds insensitive, it should, because I don't care. As a human being, I want Nate Meier to do great things. I want him to not be an alcoholic. But as a police officer, get out. Bye-bye. Got no use for you anymore, man. Why would anyone trust you after that? Just frustrating. It's really frustrating. I am a big defender of the people in blue. You know that. But there has got to be a standard. That standard can't be whatever you do that's wrong, we'll figure out a way to justify it. That cannot be the standard. And I cannot believe that the rest of the people at Aurora look at this promotion and say, way to go, big guy. I got to believe there's a ton of them that are like, what are you still doing here, man? I hope you get alcoholism licked, but not on the job. Not with a gun on your hip and a badge on your chest and the authority to do things like arrest people and interrogate them and lock them up. No, thank you. Even if recruiting is tough, is it that tough? I don't know, man. I appreciate the back and forth, but I do not treat this like diabetic. But if some cop puts himself in a position to be unsafe out there, he ought to be held accountable. No questions about it. If you got a thought on that, you can give me a call, 303-696-1971. Here's another text. Good morning, George. I definitely agree with you. How can we trust that officer knowing that he was drunk on the job and he got away with it? It's just not right. I'm sorry, he should have been terminated, and he should have had to pay like everybody else would if they got a DUI. That's the truth. And I'm telling you, if that guy had been, by the way, charged where that occurred right there by Buckley, that's my jurisdiction. We have, in my 8 years as DA, we successfully prosecuted, I may get this number wrong, but it's like 35 cops for various things that they did, most of them off duty. But DUI was one of them. Give no quarter to cops who drive drunk. And if they're out there telling you they ought to get a shake better than you, that's not real. Most of them wouldn't say that. When they make mistakes, they should be held accountable like everybody else. The days of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I'll drive you home. Man, that's 40 years ago. That's over. That just cannot be equal justice under the law. So if this guy had been lit up on a DUI and brought to us under those circumstances on the job, I promise you he's walking out the door with at least a conviction for an alcohol-related driving offense and some type of conviction for that weapon on his hip. What that does to his ability to be a police officer, I don't care. I don't care. These jobs don't belong to them. They belong to us. And we go out and hire people to do them for us through the city council and the police department. It's just frustrating, man. It's just frustrating. Why defend this guy? He may be the best dude on the planet Earth. I have no idea. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Question here, how would this detective be subject to cross? It's a good question. I don't think anything comes from it. I think maybe, I'm wondering, there's something called Rule 16, which is a discovery rule that requires the man, that's the people, the government, to give up every single piece of evidence that they got on someone, even stuff they may not use in court, because you got to give the defendant all this opportunity to defend themselves and to question the evidence and all that stuff. That's how the Constitution works. I agree with that. Brady versus Maryland says, got to turn over exculpatory or potentially exculpatory information. That's such a big deal that they changed the rules, the ethics rules that govern the prosecutors. Special rule called 3.8 to say, hey, if you screw up on the discovery stuff, it could cause you to be suspended or lose your license. That's a big deal. I don't agree with that, but that's what they've done. So I'm not sure if this is the stuff you have to divulge to the defense as mandatory disclosure. If I'm the DA, I probably default on doing it. But can it be used in cross-examination? For what? I mean, his credibility isn't at risk for telling, he's not he's not a truth teller for what happened to him for being drunk on the job in the uniform with a gun on his hip. So I don't see how it's cross-examination material. In fact, I mean, if push came to shove, I think in an in-camera hearing or something outside the presence of the jury, the judge would say, looks like the dude did nothing but tell the truth. Every time he was asked, he told the truth. I mean, guy talked about going to his house, sitting down with a bottle of vodka, and bam, finishing that sucker. I don't think it could be used in cross. It'd be interesting. But the question is, do you trust this guy on the road? If you're the police chief, what do you do? I think this goes to that discussion of what needs to change with civil service with Aurora. Because if you're the chief of police, you want your hands tied and be like, I got to put him out there. I got to put him out there. I don't know. Maybe he's rehabbed. I don't know. Here's something. I guess we want the same accountability for teachers, doctors, and clergy too. Yes, that's exactly right. How could he ever testify in court again? A DUI stop now. He must be fired. The city has no credibility. That's the thing. There's nothing that impacts his credibility on the stand, in my opinion. The question is, from a standpoint of us in the community, is this the standard that we should have for our officers? And I don't care that the dude beat the system. Bully for you, man. But move on. Maybe go to some other department or something with a new start. But I don't know. I think it's going to be a problem moving forward. I also think, though, in some ways it'll be good because it's going to give that city council another anecdote to say, this is why we need to change civil service. We cannot be in a position where our hands are tied in a situation like this, where everybody knows what happened. The system was powerless to hold him accountable the way it normally would because someone helped him beat the system. And that is the system. That's the police. And so now we're stuck. I just can't imagine that that's it. Here's someone, he kills someone while drunk. The city loses its, and I'm going to use the word keister. That is a very interesting position. What happens if you cut this guy? And a detective, I guess they're on the street driving around. What happens if this dude decides, hey, I'm going to swing by the house or a bar or something like that, or have a drink with lunch, and he gets behind the wheel and he's involved in any kind of an accident? Hello, liability. I mean, oh, that's a good question. I just don't know how it turns out. Well, this was a reference to Billy's story. Billy's team had a new system where they trade jock straps with a guy to the right for good luck. I want that to not be true. Let me see here. That's all good stuff. Listen, we have a caller on the line, 303-696-1971. Let me get to him. Don, I'll take you. Don, how are you? You're on 710.
Hey, good morning, George.
Morning.
Sounds like the voice is getting better.
Yeah, I hope so. What's going on?
Did you have a cold or did you get the COVID?
No, it's definitely not the COVID. It's definitely not the flu. I was tested for both those things. They say it's just some viral something or other. So they do what they always do. They throw a ton of drugs at you and say that should help. That's it.
The police officer in question that you're talking about, the untold story a lot of times is there's a lot of drug and alcohol abuse that happens in law enforcement. And I would venture to say, well, I know firsthand, lawyers, same issue. So it just seems to be a problem that we have. Should the guy pay for it the rest of his life? I think how he handled it, what he went through, how he was rehabbed. I just don't think you can go out and say, well, this guy's part of his career is, over because of this one issue.
Why not? Why couldn't you say that? Why couldn't you say that?
Well,
let me give you another occupation, Don. Let's say there's a surgeon who gets busted in the ER and he's drunk. Would you ever feel comfortable as a patient in the future with that dude operating on you?
I had a doctor that was one of the better doctors over at Porter that attacked a nurse going to do some alcoholic withdrawal type of psycho state. And he was carried out by the cops. He wasn't allowed to practice medicine here. He's in another state practicing medicine. Good doctor, just had a problem. He had this for years.
Why is that different?
It's not different, but I'm just saying it is when you say, well, I want a surgeon, it's everywhere. Pilot. I mean, it's a social problem that we have. Now, if you're going to do it to one, you're going to do it to the other. You're going to tell the doctor you can never practice medicine. You can never do surgery again.
Yeah.
So the issue of people being rehabbed, you have an attorney that's defending you and he's all coked up. Should he be done with being a lawyer?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I don't think it's going to ever work that way, George.
Listen, I treat it differently if it's something that takes place off the job. I mean, there are cops just like everybody else that make mistakes behind the wheel.
Off the job.
Hang on. That's right. That's the difference. But what I'm saying is, even a doctor off the job, there would be some sort of potential licensing consequences. Those people, that's different. But when you are at a place in your life where whatever it is, whatever your demon is, affects you in a life-saving job, and that's what cops do. That's what doctors do. That's what pilots do. Lifesavers. When it affects your decisions so badly that you put yourself in a position to go to work and not save lives because you're drunk or high, I'm done with you. You should be rehabbed, but not in that job.
My ex-father-in-law, good Catholic that he was, he used to sit around getting hammered with the Catholic priests from the diocese. And he was an OBGYN, and 3 o'clock in the morning, he'd get a call, end up going in to deliver a kid. I mean, unfortunately, this is pervasive everywhere. I will tell you, I've had police friends before few years ago that would come to my shop, quite a few years ago, go to the fridge, grab a couple beers. There might be other things they might have been doing. They were Denver cops.
Were they on duty?
One time, they were in the cop car.
Yeah, listen, I'm not good with that. Did they seem drunk to you?
Well, I had,
Did they seem drunk to
Did they
you?
what?
Did they seem drunk to you?
That doesn't make any difference whether they were drunk or not. You don't be drinking anything on the job.
If they're taking a couple beers to drink later, that's one thing. But if they're drinking on the job,
They're
yeah.
not taking any beers. They're sitting there on my bench with their police radio. At one time, they took off and forgot because I was in Inglewood, took off to Denver. I keep hearing the cops on the radio. What the hell is this? They come screaming back in the cruiser. Give us our radio, man. We left our radio.
Yeah. Yeah. Don,
Yeah,
it's not an easy answer about. Yeah, Don, I got to let you go. I'm sorry. I'm out of time.
Sometime in private, I got some things I'll share with you.
Yeah. I appreciate the
It'll
call.
raise your eyebrow.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate it. Listen, it's not an easy topic. I'm not suggesting that your life is over after you make a mistake with alcohol. This is so not that. This is the extreme version of the mistake that you cannot make. I mean, if this were a teacher who showed up to school drunk, I feel totally differently. I'm outraged. There got to be consequences. I feel totally differently than I do if it's a supervising cop on duty with a gun on his hip, radio in the car, or a doctor in an ER, or a pilot getting on a plane. I'm sorry. Are our standards so low at this point that we got to say we're willing to cross our fingers with other lives because we think you deserve a second chance? Are those the jobs you want to do that in? Maybe that's the topic I need to hear from you on. 303-696-1971. You agree with this guy keeping his job and then getting promoted? Or you think, no, that's it. I'm sorry, man. I wish you well. I want you to get all the help in the world you can. But you simply cannot be trusted to be on duty in a car with a gun in the name of the people of the city of Aurora. Again, it just can't happen. 303-696-1971. We got texts coming in, got calls. I'll get to those things too. Let's cut away for a quick break. It's me, George Brauchler, on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler right back with you here on 710 KNUS. Somehow I had intended to talk about this Joe Biden classified document thing, and I promise you we'll get to that before the show's over. But we've taken a little bit of a turn here with this update about Nate Meier. He is the drunk sergeant on duty who beat the system, didn't get the DUI charge, and drunk with a gun charge that would have likely truncated, if not ended, his law enforcement career. Beat the system because the system helped him to. And the question now is, he's just been promoted through an automatic process that nobody can stop because he just checked all the boxes that exist in a civil service system that protects cops. And so some texts have been coming in here. I'll read you a couple of them, then I'll get to the calls here. It says, it's an issue of moral and ethical integrity at one's core. Yeah, I don't want to make it a moral issue. For me, it's just a straight up safety issue as to why would you do that? Why would this person ever be allowed to be put in that position again? Someone else said, we all deserve a chance at redemption, always. If he's learned his lesson and he's making better decisions now, then that's better for society. Though he should have not been helped out the way he was, it was handled wrong. Well, I agree with the last part. It was handled wrong. It was an injustice the way it was handled. But why does redemption mean you get to go right back to where you were before you made the big mistake on the job? I mean, what else does that apply to? We all deserve a shot at redemption. Well, what if it hadn't been he was drunk on duty? What if he had lost his temper and punched out a citizen or broke someone's arm or yelled racial epithets at them? Would we still say, hey, everybody deserves a shot at redemption? We'd say, why in the world would we put that dude back out on the street with the authority of the government behind him? Why would we give him the ability to carry a gun to arrest people? Huge, huge risk. 303-696-1971. We have Jeff online, but we have a special caller. No one's ever heard from him before. His name is Peter. Peter, thanks for joining the show.
Hey, man.
Hey, it's Peter Boyles. Pete, how are you?
Yeah. I'm driving to the gym, listening to the show, and I'd like to say, first of all, thanks for setting recovery back about 100 years.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
Well, do you know what the other A stands for in AA?
The anonymous part, sure.
Yeah, it's anonymous.
Yeah.
George, I've been sober for pushing 38 years. I know deputy chiefs of police, undersheriffs, physicians, surgeons. I know airline pilots. I actually know elected officials that are in recovery. Should they be outed? Should they have their jobs taken back from them? Remember one thing, alcoholism is a disease. If this guy were in remission from cancer, would you want him off the job?
I'm not sure that's the same thing, Pete.
Sure it is. It's a disease.
Hold on. This isn't he had a disease on the job. That's no one's saying you have a disease, George, you can't be on the job.
George, I'm taking you to school. Alcoholism is a disease. I was born alcoholic. It's not a behavior like you're putting it over on. Now, I don't know this officer, and I decided I'm going to write my column about it and then write about what you said on the radio show I'm writing today.
But do you know if he's an alcoholic?
Say that again?
Do you know if he's an alcoholic?
I don't. I'm going to make a phone call. My best guess is he probably is. But I know talk show hosts. I'm one of them. Media people, physicians, fighter pilots, people that are in recovery. What should we do with them, George?
It's not about being an alcoholic, Pete. And you've heard me distinguish that. It's about what he did on the job.
That's right. His disease put him there.
And listen, there are a ton of alcoholics who never bring that into the operating room or into the cockpit of the plane or behind the wheel of the car.
George, you don't understand this. Believe me, when I tell you, I have met, there's an organization of physicians in recovery who went into ORs and ERs on their can that passed out on the bodies of people that, I'm choking on this, that passed out on people they were operating on.
Yeah,
I know police officers.
Those guys shouldn't be doctors anymore. Pete, so it's not about that. It's the risk to the community is what's happening here, right? Would you allow an epileptic to be a pilot if all the doctor could tell them was, hey, we can give him all the hang on, Pete, we can give him all the meds in the world, but there's a 10% chance he might have an epileptic fit on the plane.
George, there's light years between epilepsy and alcoholism. You're doing apples and oranges right now, my boy. What I'm telling you is we have finally found out. I mean, and everything is breaking through in this disease of alcoholism. And this is why the city of Denver is such a clown show, because they treat the street homeless as a behavior. Now, I want to come back to recovery. I know people. I've spoken with them, spent time with them in positions way beyond anything I would ever hold in my life. You know, when you think about George Patton, U.S. Grant, Andrew Jackson, great alcoholics and great military leaders. Alcoholism doesn't care white, green, black, orange.
But
male,
this isn't
female,
about
straight.
this isn't about alcoholism. This is
Of course
about
it
the
is.
risk to the community.
If he's sober, if this officer has gained his sobriety, what
Yeah.
happened? This happened in what, 18?
18 or 19, I can't remember. It was before the COVID.
I can't. So he's got 5 years or 4 years, whatever it is. If he's gained his sobriety, and he really, you would not allow him to do what? He's in remission
To
from
be in a
disease.
life or death position. Yeah, I wouldn't.
Well, then you're going to pass. I know federal judges that are in recovery. Should they be judges? Because you can't trust them, George.
If they did their job on the bench drunk.
Yeah.
Yep. I think
George, with respect, because you were on that side of the bench, George, I know judges, males and females that are in recovery that drank.
Well, Pete,
lunch.
is it okay for folks to come to work
not okay.
drunk?
It's not okay. I'm not
Then what do
making
you do
any-
with it? You just
I'm talking about
keep suspending him when he shows up
George,
drunk and say, "Hey, don't do it
George,
again.
No,
Don't do it
I'm
again."
no. This is a one. Listen, these are men and women who are adjudicators, who are alcoholics. I know district attorneys.
I know,
in
but what do you
recovery.
do with them?
Well, they're in recovery.
Okay, and so you put them on the bench. They show up drunk again. Then what do you say? Oops.
George, well, what? I mean, what about a serial cheater on his wife? What about anything like this?
But buddy, first off, those are private relationships as opposed to public jobs, right?
No.
I'm
because
talking
they're
life
doing-
or death jobs where someone's decision.
George,
What do you do with a pilot
George,
that shows up to
I
work
know
drunk?
them. I know these people. I've met them.
I
I've
know
listened
that you
to
know
them
them. What
speak.
does that have to do with this?
I trust
However
them.
good that person is does not
Well,
decrease the risk to the public.
My friend, I would not want to live with your standards in life. These are
But
men
it's-
men and women who have spent all of their lives in recovery.
My standards begin with him being prosecuted for DUI and drunk with a gun like you or I would have. Because
And
Pete, that
you know
dude
what?
got a pass. And had he been prosecuted for it, he wouldn't be a cop no
Hey,
more.
I know some division chiefs that got some great passes when they were drunk.
Yeah, all wrong. I'd oppose every one of them.
Well, then you have to deal. What did Lincoln say? Well, about Grant? I mean, we alcoholics, drug addicts, because alcohol is a drug. We're a unique group of people, and I don't trust a guy on the street, but I do. If this police officer, I'm going to write about him today. I'm going to find him.
Yeah, please do.
If he spent the last 4 years in recovery, going to meetings and doing his work to become a citizen in recovery. And this is what really set me off about your show.
Yeah.
Is I'd like to take you with me someday and meet some of these people. This whole what Step 13 was about.
Pete, you think I'm blaming him for being an alcoholic, or you think
not
that this
blaming
is somehow about me thinking people can't be redeemed?
No,
Well, I don't believe
I'm
that at
talking
all,
about
man.
the bluntness of, well, that's it for him. And it's
In
not.
this job, that's it. That's right.
No. Should the guy be able to fly a plane again? Should a guy be able to be
No.
a judge again or a DA again? That's pretty
Pete, hold
condemning.
on. Being a DA or a judge, very different than flying a plane with human beings in it.
What about being a surgeon, or what about
No.
being a physician?
No, I
That's
don't think so.
condemning. That's pretty condemning.
It's not condemning, man. What about the
course it
risk
is.
to the public? What happens when this guy shows up to work drunk again and gets involved in a car
You know
accident and kills
Well,
someone?
well,
What do
well,
we
it's
say to
well,
them? Sorry.
What happened? If I walk back in a 710 on my rear end, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but if you show up here drunk, Pete, if
Ah.
everything goes wrong, it's a drunk guy on the radio, right?
I see.
If this guy
So-
shows up drunk to work, someone could get hurt or killed.
If his cancer returns, if
It's not cancer because cancer doesn't kill somebody else.
listen to me. What about? I mean, this is. I mean, I think you'll be the topic of every recovery meeting in the Front Range for the next month.
Man, if the issue is alcoholics on the job, not a problem. If that's what you're saying, that it's okay to be drunk on the job, you don't have a supporter here.
I already told you in remission. I already told you
in remission until when? Until when?
See what you're doing. You've just said everything back.
I have said nothing back. Pete, why does remission mean you get to be put in the exact place in the world where you were before you showed up to work drunk? Who says that?
Well, no one says it. It's like that's why the other A is there, anonymous. That's why Bill Wilson.
Wait a minute, this dude was not anonymous way before me, buddy. I didn't out this guy.
No, listen to
we don't even know if he's an alcoholic.
I know that too. I'm going to find out. My best guess, if he's sitting there drunk in the car, high degree of probability, as the late Bob Cote said, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, feathers like a duck, flies like a duck. Chances are it's a duck. And that's why I see this guy.
It's just, if it's not okay to be drunk on the job and you're in a position to be at a greater risk for it, and that job is a life or death job, don't we have to do something?
That's why Bill Wilson knew that he couldn't trust people like you with our recovery.
I don't know what that means.
Well, Bill Wilson is one of the founders. You see a bumper sticker says "Friend of Bill" or Bill W. He's one of the founders of AA. And one of the reasons they put the other A on there, anonymous, are people like you.
I don't know what that means. People like me, people that think in life or death jobs, there ought to be different standards than for jobs like radio host.
That are condemning. No, I don't give a damn.
Condemning? I'm not condemning this guy.
George, listen.
I'm saying dude shouldn't be a police officer. That's not condemning.
Sure. So then we should find every police officer who is in recovery, get rid of them.
No, buddy, if they'd worked on the job drunk like this guy, they probably shouldn't be on the job.
Many of them, most of them did.
This guy committed crimes while drunk on the job. This wasn't just a guy who was at his desk drunk. This is a dude who committed crimes.
Then you better go weed and seed, man. You better find all the federal judges and district attorneys and police officers and battle commanders and priests and all the people who have found their way into recovery. That I'm
not opposed to, buddy. I am a huge supporter of recovery, but the idea that, hey, just because I drove around in a police car with a gun on my hip and I was stone cold drunk to the point that I passed out in the middle of the road, that doesn't mean I'm a risk in the future because I'm in remission. I'm in recovery.
You got it. Bingo. You hit the home run.
And so nobody falls out of remission or recovery.
Well, and then again, that's why the other A is there, because we don't trust people like you. So you're going to condemn me for the offer of my time.
Buddy, it's not a condemnation to say, I want you to recover, but maybe this isn't the right job for your disease.
Well, so what about the commanders that I know? Should they be off the job now?
Were they on the job drunk?
Of course.
Committing crimes.
I don't know what they did.
If they get caught, I promise you the answer won't be, hey, go get better, and you can still be in the same job.
If they've been sober for 20 years now, what would you do with it?
Hey, we get guys that are drunks all the time, Pete, that get pulled over for DUIs off the job. That's different. What happens and this is a question. What happens if you're at Step Denver and you're in recovery and you get caught drinking or using drugs? What happens there?
They throw you out.
Why? Shouldn't they just let you back in?
No, Bob Cote. Well, they will. We don't ban that are wounded. I have a relative that I discovered actually living on the streets of Denver. His mother called me, and he is now in a care unit right now, and he's 51 years old, and we're blood relatives.
But why does Step get rid of them? Why does Step kick them out?
I watched Bob throw them out and bring them back. I watched Bob throw guys out, and a week later they were back in. When they went to Denver Cares and they detoxed, and Bob brought them right back in the door again. I watched it again and again, because we don't ban that are wounded. We bring them back and try again.
Well, Pete, of course, we can always have this conversation in the future as well. And let me know what happens when you find out about whatever Nate's issue is. But thanks for the call. Good luck in the workout.
Bye.
See you, my man. Hey, that was a guy named Peter Boyles, having a conversation with us about this Nate Meier thing. Topic I didn't really expect to go anywhere, but it's gone quite a few places. We've got Jeff and Ed on the phone. I promise you, Jeff and Ed, I will get to you with the time that's left. After this break, I've got to come back and talk to our good buddies at Alpine Planning. But with whatever time is left after that, we'll get on the phone calls as best we can. Number 303-696-1971. George Brauchler on the George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler right back with you here on 710 KUS. My thanks to Pete for calling in and helping us continue the conversation. We'll wait on our buddies from Alpine Planning to give us a call this morning. Until then, we're going to go to the phone lines, honor those who've been on hold the longest. Jeff, you're on 710 KUS. What do you think, Jeff?
Oh man, what a ironic call that Peter called in and I was on hold. That was nice to hear him call.
Yeah,
actually.
it's good to hear Pete. Yeah.
Anyway, hey, what I am trying to talk to you, and we're from the same area, right? I'm from Golden. You're the Wheat Ridge guy. I've called you a couple times. But one thing, man, you gotta, and I've been wanting to call you for a while.
Yeah.
On something kind of different on your stance with marijuana, because the longer I listen to you, you kind of remind me.
When you say my stance on marijuana, what are you talking about?
Well, I'm just curious what your stance is. Is it a zero, like completely no support on it? You think it's it's not a good thing, probably?
In what context, man?
Just in any context. Basically, where I'm trying to get to is what I'm trying to say is sometimes I think you have somewhat of a utopia, feeling a sight on life or whatever, that, no drugs or alcohol, period. You know what I mean? And I think it's just like the left's utopia. You're not going to get there. You're going to, you know what I mean? You're just not like
how it is
George
having this. How does this idea that you think I have this utopian view impact this topic?
Well, I guess the more I listen to you, one thing, the reason I want to call it was like, okay, on the Republicans in general, okay, the way their stance is with marijuana right now, if they would take a pro stance on marijuana, they just might win some more elections. There's a lot of people out there that hate the left, that hate the Democrats, everything else like this.
Yeah, and Jeff, we can have that. We can have that talk someday. But let me focus you.
But I have a feeling that guys like yourself
has nothing to do with marijuana.
Are so staunchly against drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, just
absolute no. That you're.
Dude, I've been an imbiber myself. But Jeff, focus on the Nate Meier thing. Well, how does your call impact that? I don't want to talk about weed. I want to talk about whether or not a person in this situation ought to continue on. And I'm not talking about any job. I mean, there's a million jobs you can do where if you showed up drunk, it doesn't bug me that they stay on. But a life or death job, different.
And in my context, I mean, just in my life, okay, we owned a shop in Englewood. We had a guy that worked for us that showed up. I was too young. He probably drunk. Actually, he wouldn't show up for weeks on end. Had a horrendous, girls and drug alcohol problem. I mean, just a horrible, horrible guy. It was bad. And I remember being a kid being like, and my dad never let him go because he was one of our best mechanics.
Okay.
And he never let him go, and he kept him there. And now that guy literally runs a shop.
Love
we
the story.
sold it.
It's great.
And he's still right. It's a feel-good story. I knew you'd dismiss this when I told this story because you dismiss stuff like this.
When you say dismiss, what do you mean?
He's a guy in our family that literally, you know what I mean?
Why do you say I'm dismissing?
Anything for my dad, because he didn't just say, you know what, pal, you're not a welder, you're a mechanic. If you're drunk and you're on drugs, you need to go do something else. Like,
I know, but he's a welder or a mechanic, dude. He's not flying a plane or operating on someone or being a cop. You know what I mean? These are different jobs.
To define these different jobs as some are more this. That's one thing.
Jeff, do you think a welder is a life or death job for others the way a police officer is?
If a welder doesn't get a chassis welded together and it breaks and it causes a huge accident, you bet goddamn right.
But
you don't think so? You don't think welders are as important as cops?
It's not a question of as important,
That's what you're trying to worry about.
That is not.
You're trying to figure out who's more important, George.
It's not more important. Who poses a bigger risk to society if they show up to work drunk. You are interested in defining me and interpreting what that definition should mean. I'm asking you to just confront the question. Should a guy who's willing to come to work drunk with a gun on his hip and get in a car and drive around, is that risk worth taking again for society, for you?
You goddamn right it is.
Because what's he needs with to the profanity, man? Why can't you talk without the profanity?
Okay, sorry. Excuse me.
Buddy, you've cursed your way through to the end of the show here, my friend. I'm sorry. We're at the end of the hour. I got to cut you loose. Buddy, come on, man. Come with the logic. You don't have to pepper it with profanity, and you don't have to define me. Just answer the questions. Dang. Listen, we're going to change gears a little bit here. At 8:03, we're going to be joined by someone from CBS4 on a really cool feel-good story that they're doing. George Brauchler, 710, KNUS. It's a recovering George Brauchler back in the saddle halfway through the Friday show at 7:10 KNUS. At 10, of course, we got a guy named Charlie Kirk, who I think sounds a lot better. He's going to take over. Then Prager at 11, Gorka at 1, and then we go live and local right back here in the studio with Deb Floor at 3 and Stefan at 4. Periodic water and cough breaks as we continue to go through this. Now, everyone that's online, we'll get to you. I promise you if you hang on. But I want to change gears here. I want to talk about something a little more positive, a little more upbeat. Not the normal talk radio topics, but it's one that's first great for the community. Two, I have a selfish interest in this, and I'll share that with you as we go through this whole thing. But I want to bring up right now someone who's taken time out of their morning to chat with us, and I really appreciate it. From CBS 4, Elaine Torres. Elaine, thanks for joining us.
Hi, good morning, George. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, what you guys have done here is really cool. But before we talk about it, tell us who you are for CBS 4. Tell us a little bit too about, I like to know things like, where'd you grow up? How did you do here? How'd you get here? That kind of thing.
Oh, got it. Okay, that sounds great. So my name is Elaine Torres. I'm the Director of Community and Strategic Partnerships at CBS 4 here in Denver. I have been at CBS for about 22 years, so I've been there a really long time. I grew up in Colorado Springs and went to CU Boulder, got a degree in political science.
Oh, you're a genius. I did too.
And good. And moved to Denver after CU and ended up getting a master's at DU in communications and marketing and PR, and worked at the Rocky Mountain News back in the day.
Oh, wow.
The daily paper Rocky, and came to CBS 4 in 2001, January of 2001. I'm actually coming up on my 22nd anniversary there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Now, the role that you're in right now, you do things with the community, you do these stories. Most of them, in fact, maybe all of them, are inspirational. I mean, these packages that you put together. Tell me about this one that we're going to talk about. What was the inspiration for it, and how did you tackle doing it?
Sure. So I really oversee all of our community partnerships, community initiatives, and really work across the station in helping to identify and implement programs and initiatives that really do impact the community in a really positive way. So we have a number of different initiatives that we do throughout the year, whether it's partnerships with Boys and Girls Club, or it's our Girls in Science event, or it's Boy Drive, things like that. But this program, Future Leaders, was created back in 2017. And it really was, as we were starting to do more around STEM, really across the station, and highlighting the importance of STEM and youth getting into STEM careers and STEM studies, we really thought Future Leaders could be a good opportunity to identify high school students in our community who are excelling in STEM and really going to be our future STEM leaders, really doing innovative work at the high school level that we know we can continue watching them as they grow and develop into their careers. And so Future Leaders was created in 2017 really to fit that need. And so we put out a call to the community, asked parents and teachers and coaches and anybody else who they knew was a high school student who was excelling in STEM to nominate the students. And we reviewed nominations on an ongoing basis throughout every school year. And we picked a winner to recognize both on our air, and we also give them a cash award. And so it's been fun to get to know the students and learn their stories. This is our 6th year school year doing it, and all of the students we recognize are remarkable in all of what they're doing and how they're giving back to the community.
How many students have you chosen so far?
We are over 40 students.
Wow.
At this point. We have recognized between 6 and 8 students each school year. So we're at over 40 students. And there are high school students. A lot come from the metro area, but last month we recognized a student from Southeast Colorado. We've recognized students from the mountains, from the Eastern Plains. So we really do recognize kids throughout the state.
What do you do when you're my guess is all these applications are compelling in their own right? They're all these great kids who are doing good stuff. How hard is it to say, we're going to pick this one versus this one? I mean, what are the criteria you go through?
Well, the great thing is when students are nominated, if they are not selected for the first, like our first winner, their nomination continues. So they are considered for on an ongoing basis beyond that. So there are some applications. I mean, some applications that come our way that are just, I mean, so well written in how they describe the students' work, their commitment, why they're involved in STEM, what their work means to them, what they see their future being. And we have others who really speak to more about what the student, who the student is, the person they are, and how kind they are, how generous they are, how great they are at academics. And then we get those that are really the meshing of all of that, right? And, you know, we can see even beyond the work they do in the community to really improve situations for others in their community. So it is definitely a tough decision, but, you know, I think the good thing is that we can carry them through beyond the first time they're under consideration. But, you know, we do ask for the nominator to really explain, like, in detail, why is the student a STEM leader? What is it that they're doing in STEM? We also ask, are there extraordinary circumstances that have really impacted the student or created challenges for the student to, you know, for them to be able to excel the way they have despite any challenges. And then we also talk about what are their thoughts around how they would use the money. It's not a scholarship. It's the money that goes directly to them. So we've had students who say, we will put it to college. Others who say, hey, we're building a robotics project. We want to put it towards a robotics project. Others who, it really ranges. And so it's not a scholarship that has to go towards, you know, again, tuition and books. It could go towards a project they're working on.
Or a gift for a parent. Oh, no, I'm kidding. Now, listen, before I talk about the one I'm selfishly proud of, do us a favor, and for this year's selections, give us some sort of, I guess, anecdotal descriptions. What are you seeing out of these kids? What are the stories that are being told?
Well, so we have recognized 2 students so far. And the first student we recognized was from Campo, Colorado, in southeastern and very southeastern Colorado. And this is a student who is really fascinating because he is working in an area where the academics and the ability to access resources is extremely, extremely limited.
Yeah.
And so he is actually working on creating, growing plants in a butt to be able to help solve problems innovatively in his rural community because they are dealing with such a significant drought in southeastern Colorado. So he's really taking what his rural community is dealing with and coming up with kind of ways to solve those problems along the kind of Colorado-Oklahoma border. So that is this first student
that's interesting. Yeah.
And then we just had our second student who we recognized this week. And I don't know if you want to share that.
Yeah. Point of real pride here. And if you don't mind suffering through it, because you're the one that put it together, Billy's got the sound from it. And I thought we might play it and then have a conversation after. You okay with that?
Yeah, that's great.
We're talking with Elaine Torres. She is from CBS4. Apparently been there since Marconi invented the radio, but also a CU buff. So probably someone we should pay attention to. Elaine, hang on for a minute. Billy, play that clip that they put together. Yeah. Elaine, yeah, Elaine, thank you for doing that. First off, and I think some folks might be like, oh yeah, well, media guys, like this had nothing to do with me, right? I mean, this was all Trey and
No.
his mom put in this application, right, in the school and stuff.
Yes. Marcia submitted a very well-written nomination for him, and it's all about Trey. It's all about what he's doing in STEM. It's all about the change that he's making in the impact on the community. I mean, we don't look at the names. We don't look. But has nothing to do with it. We really look at what is in this nomination, and this was a really strong nomination. And I think all of the work that Trey is doing. I mean, obviously, he's doing just such extraordinary things. I mean, the fact that they are genetically modifying flies.
Yeah, that's news to me, by the way, Elaine. I was a little concerned by that. Like, mutating them into what?
Yeah, I couldn't even begin to think about how you do that. And so for a high school student, it's extraordinary. So really, he is recognized because he is a STEM leader, and he's going to continue to be a future STEM leader. And we were really honored and proud to be able to recognize him. And I think the piece came out great. I hope you and Marcia enjoyed it. But
so proud.
I hope he
so proud.
He's doing something.
Elaine, something else. It looks like now he still wants to go tour Penn State that just recently took him, but I think he's going to CSU. I mean, I think that's where his heart is. He wants to go to CSU. For CU buffs, that's tough to hear. You're a buff, I'm a buff. That's tough to hear, but I've accepted it. I'm so proud of this kid. I've even contemplated, could I put on a Rams hat? And I think I can. I think I can do it. I'm not sure how long I can wear it, but I'll do it. But the other thing is, you got more words out of my son for that little interview than I've gotten out of him in maybe a week. He's just not a talker. And I don't know if you could tell it. He's pretty stoic, introverted, and for a lot of different reasons. But so for instance, I had him on the radio, Elaine, here. I've had all my kids on the radio. And it was on his birthday earlier this year. And he's turning 18. And I just tell him how proud I am of him and all the things that he's done. And I get a little emotional on how much I love him. Long pause. And the response is, thanks. Just thanks. Yeah. And you guys did a great job of getting him to talk. I was so proud of that.
Well, what we have an extraordinary news team who they are really good at pulling that information out of those individuals they're interviewing. But the thing that I think is most important is that it really speaks to his passion, right? I mean, he talks about That's it true. So passionate. I think it's something when I see that, it comes across as he just is so proud to talk about this work that he's doing, because when I see it, it sounds like you're talking about it, not just because it's important to him, but because of the impact it's going to have on others down the road.
I think so too. Listen, for the future, well, you said there's 6 to 8 per year. This is the second one. How often do you release them, and where can listeners go to watch them?
So you can go to cbscolorado.com, which is our website. Top of the website, there's a link that says Future Leaders. You can click on that. On that page is a description of what the award is. The nomination information is right there. And then if you scroll down a little bit, you could click on a link to see Trey's profile and all of our previous Future Leader winners as well. We will be accepting nominations through April 15th. We are planning to recognize 6 students this year. So we have 4 more that we are going to be selecting. And we're actually in the process right now of selecting our next winner. But if anybody has a student or, again, somebody in their life who they feel is really excelling in STEM, I would encourage everybody to go to that website and learn more and submit a nomination.
Say the website again so people know. I'd love to get a ton of these, because my guess is there's a lot of unsung STEM leaders out there that are students that I didn't know that this was out there. This was something Trey's mom found. So say it again, and let's get a lot of people to submit stuff.
Sure, it's cbscolorado.com.
Elaine Torres, thank you so much for making time. This was great. And I really do appreciate what you did for making that whole thing packaged well and showing Trey in such a positive light. We're very proud of him.
Well, it was an honor to do it. It was Trey's an extraordinary student, and we'll look forward to watching how he progresses in his career in college and beyond.
Yeah, thanks, Elaine.
So thank you.
Talk to you very soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
I know. That was Elaine Torres, CBS4. Go check it out there at that CBS4 website. I think that's fantastic. Listen, we're going to cut away for a break after I do a little bit of a read here, and then we'll get to everybody that's been nice enough to hold online. Ed, Henry, Jason. We'll continue the conversation that we had before. It's one that this is, again, and Pete's the one that said this, radio no man's master. This was not a topic Billy and I had prepared for, not that one that we thought would ever go anywhere. It was just sort of a, let's talk about what happened. And all of a sudden it has really turned into something worth having a conversation about with the public on these things. A lot of good thoughts, a lot of impassioned opinions, and I promise you that we'll get to them. But not before I tell you about our good friends at Urban Lights. Now, urbanlightsdenver.com is their website. I'm going to say it a couple times so you don't forget it. urbanlightsdenver.com. That's the place that you go to see what do they have available, and they have a great website for that. But if you stop shopping there, you have cheated yourself out of the ability to go and find a way to walk into that 20,000 square foot national award-winning showroom and really see these things in a way that matter. Because it's lighting. You cannot appreciate the lighting and the home decor and the furniture just from pictures. It never seems to be the same. So go out there and do what so many others have done. And it's right there off of Santa Fe between Mississippi and Florida, just south of I-25. And go in there and check it out. You'll meet Dave or one of his great customer service folks and tell them what you're interested in. You might say, I really don't know. I don't know what I'm interested in. I just want to know how I can make the interior of my house prettier, better, maybe the exterior too. And they will say, this is how we've divided up this 20,000 square foot wonderful. It's like the Disneyland of lighting. Go out there and check it out. And they've got all these different things, whether it's the French chateau, the rustic, the modern, all these other themes I can't even remember. They've got a pretty cool modern one too in the back corner there where they show you about the technology they're working on, the way they can bend light to their artistic thoughts. I mean, these things are fantastic. Here's the other cool thing though. 40% off of MSRP if you get it done during their New Year's sale, which is still ongoing right now. 40% off MSRP on all lights and decor during that. Check it out right now. Urban Lights Denver. When you stop in, tell them you listen to 710 KNUS. They'll tell you we do too. urbanlightsdenver.com, urbanlightsdenver.com. When we come back, everybody else on hold, Ed, Henry, Jason, and our number 303-696-1971. George Brauchler, George out.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler right back with you here on 710 KNUS. My thanks to Elaine Torres from CBS4 for coming on and sharing that story. It's the part of the news we just don't focus on really on talk radio, and frankly that the news doesn't focus on. That's the feel-good stuff going on in this STEM Leaders and the Future STEM Leaders program that they have. I wasn't aware of it till Trey's mama heard about it, and with the school's help, put him in for this award that he got. Just very, very proud of him. I want to go back, though, to this topic that's kept our phone lines full and a lot of texts coming in over the last hour. At the end of the 6 is almost just a reference to something going on from a past case. I talked about the case of Nate Meier, who was a sergeant with the Aurora Police Department, and I think it was 2018, could have been 2019. I just can't remember anymore. Guy was in uniform, on duty, gun on his hip, badge on his chest, in a marked car, out in front, very close to the Buckley Air Force Base entrance. Just stopped in the middle of the road. So concerning, passersby called, and the deputy chief of police happens to be in the area, rolls out. And I went through this whole story, and long and short of it is, this guy ends up beating a DUI because the police don't investigate him for DUI. If he had been investigated, he would have been charged with driving under the influence. He would have been charged probably with official misconduct, and he would have been charged with prohibited use of a weapon, which we call drunk with a gun. Those things would have likely resulted in not only a conviction, but likely the loss of his ability to be a police officer. That's my best guess, especially since it happened on duty. None of that happens. In fact, DA's office, doesn't even get to know about the case for 9 months. By that time, there's no blood test to be had. There's no admissible statements that can come in, even though he's confessed under the protection of a certain law that encourages officers to confess to things that take place on duty. So he doesn't get charged with nothing. I think he gets demoted. But then I also think what happens after that is he gets back on the force somehow. I don't know if it's a desk job or whatever, but because he has done well or well enough, not screwed up for 3 years, he then takes a test to get promoted to detective, and he does well enough that the civil service system that they have in place mandates, you got to put him in the queue. So he's getting promoted to detective. I don't know to what area, person's crime, kid crime, burglar, don't know what crimes he's going to be assigned to. But he is going to be interacting with the public. He's going to have a gun on his hip, going to have his badge in his pocket at least. And the question was, should a guy who beat the system, who was drunk on the job, in this kind of job, be permitted to come back to that job? And really what the conversation has become about was alcoholism. One, I don't know if this dude's an alcoholic. Let's presume he is. My thought is, I don't care. It's not to be insensitive. It's that there are certain jobs out there in the world that have other people's lives hanging in the balance, like a heart surgeon or a pilot or even a police officer, or showing up to be drunk on work or getting drunk on the job. You are a risk to society in a way that if you showed up to drunk as a mechanic, a district attorney, a radio host, a snake wrangler, I don't know, I was just trying to figure out a way to get Billy involved. But any other job where you'd, even a teacher, where you would say, I get it. That's abhorrent. You shouldn't do it. Show up to work. There's discipline. But do we take people, even if they're alcoholics, which I admit is a disease, one that we have to treat, do we take people and say that it is not fair to them, or it is somehow castigating or impugning, or I don't know, some other word to them, to say you can't do a job where we can't trust that you won't show up sometime drunk? Can't do it. So maybe you can't be a pilot anymore. Maybe you can't be a heart surgeon or a brain surgeon anymore. And maybe you can't be a police officer anymore. And so Pete Boyles called in. You've heard that name before. And we had a good conversation about it. Pete's got a very different opinion. But I'd love to hear yours. And we've had a ton of texts coming in. And thank you, Alexa, who knows everything, has said the Nate Meier incident was March 29th, 2019. I got told about it in November of 2019. A lot of texts coming in, but I want to get to our callers who have all been nice enough to stay online. Ed, you're on 710 KNUS. Ed, what do you think?
Hey, George, love the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, I disagree with the thought that alcoholism is a disease. I believe it is a choice, and I believe that one and done, you should be fired.
Ed, do you not think that addiction is a disease, though, that some folks are just genetically predisposed to being addicted in a way that maybe you and I aren't?
No, I don't. It's like the burglar that robs a house. They don't just wake up and rob a house. It's little things, they little petty theft, and then they increase. They get more, I guess, involved in bigger crimes. And I think same thing with alcoholism. You don't just wake up one day, down a bottle of vodka, and then show up at work. It's little drinks here and there that you shouldn't be doing, and then eventually you increase your tolerance. There was a time in my 20s when I thought I was an alcoholic, and I made the decision back then that if I continue to go down this road, I would become an alcoholic. I've lost a lot of friends, a lot of family members because of alcoholic and drug abuse. And the other thing is, every time I hear mental disorder, I hear alcoholic and drug addiction. I think society is coddling a lot of these addictions.
And do you think that somebody can become addicted to alcohol and drugs?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if they do become addicted to it, that addiction seems to be far more than just a choice then at that point. And for Alcoholics Anonymous, what they're recognizing is you are more prone to that addiction. You have that addiction baked into your DNA. And
I think you have a choice.
Go ahead.
You have a choice to seek help.
Yeah, you have a choice. Okay,
choice.
I get that. But let's just get to the point of you have a choice to seek help. But do you acknowledge, though, that there are some folks who are just more predisposed than others to become addicted? And I'm not talking drugs now, just to talk alcohol, to alcohol than say you or I do.
I think there are some people that are weaker than others, and those are likely
that makes it. And of course, if that's the conclusion that you have, Ed, then the response to someone showing up drunk has to be very different, right? Because they've chosen to do that. And it's something that is much more of a comment on them than on this disorder. I believe that alcoholism is a disease. I believe that there are people who are more predisposed to be. Here's my example. I drank a lot in college, and maybe you did too.
Mm-hmm.
I was drunk a bunch. I never got to the point where I thought I needed a beer or I needed a drink. There are some folks who do, and I'm not willing to say it's a weakness of character. It seems to me it's something about their physiology or their.
And I think a lot of that too is that a lot of them, at least my experience with my friends and family members, is that they feel like they need that to interact in society. They feel that I guess to maybe be more macho or interact with other people. I think you need to find another way to improve yourself, whether it's social skills or interacting with people.
I think our good friends at Step Denver, Ed, would disagree with you that it's not, that choice is part of it, and they're all about accountability. That's what makes their program so awesome. But at the end of the day, I think they would tell you, hey, look, man, these guys have a problem. It's not, it can't be an excuse, but it's a problem. And if we pretend that they don't, then it's easier to malign them and say that this is just about a weakness of character or some sort of lack of self-discipline. I think it's much more than that. I think they have a tougher road to hoe than we do when it comes to alcohol. But Ed, let me get back to the topic. When it comes to someone who shows up to work drunk, as an employer, would you give them a second chance, and under what circumstances?
One and done, because
regardless of the job,
like I said, Absolutely, absolutely. Because they didn't wake up and just decided to down a bottle of vodka. They drank before that. They just did not get caught. I have worked with others that have been involved with alcoholism, and I've seen where bosses that they just kind of look the other way. And there was a caller before that mentioned that they had a high performer mechanic, and yes,
It was his
I
dad.
do
It
believe
was his
that
dad.
I do believe that there are some that can perform better on alcohol or drugs than others. But if you take that one person and you remove the alcohol and the drugs, he would perform better sober than on drugs. I do believe that. And nobody's going to convince me otherwise.
Ed, I appreciate the call, man. Thanks for keeping the conversation going. And thanks for staying on hold for so long. Ed's line is open, 303-696-1971. Jason, you're on 710. What do you think?
Hey, George, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I'll tell you, this show's really taken on a lot of different roads. My opinion, there's certain jobs when you sign up for it, you know the level of responsibility that comes with it. And yeah, on this one, you're done. I'm in aviation. I know pilots who have gotten DUIs and have had alcohol problems outside of work. It did not affect their work. They can go to rehab. There's things set up for them to go through rehab and get, as long as you're clean. You have to be tested so often, very frequently, and as long as you're clean you stay clean and pass these tests, then you're okay.
And so,
However,
but to be clear though, that this system exists to say the airline industry doesn't say, hey, if you're an addict, you can't work here. If you have a disease of alcoholism, you can't work here. They have set up a process in place to help you, right?
correct. And this is the second part of where I was going with this. Now, if you show up in uniform to work at the airport, that's a different situation.
Mm.
And so depending on, again, pilot, mechanic, or not mechanic, a surgeon, police officer, I agree. There's, those are different levels of responsibility than someone who's showing up. And I don't mean to, look down upon somebody else on different levels of jobs, but, you show up at a janitor for the factory, or you show up, as the cook at the bar down the street here. That's totally different. I mean, it's different, period. End of story. And this is,
and you could pick job CEO of a corporation, or you could pick a
correct.
district
Correct.
attorney,
Correct.
or it doesn't have to be that. It's the job. It's whether or not your job puts other lives at risk.
Yes. It's, and I don't know if maybe, because like in aviation, like a mechanic, when parts are replaced on an airplane, a log is kept, and I'll stick with the airline world, because airlines affect everyone, whether you are flying on it or someone else is flying on it, a loved one is flying on it. If a part fails, they can go back in the logbook and look at the history of that airplane when it came from Boeing or Airbus, and know who worked on every part, on what date, and who the person was that did that. And so the mechanic actually has skin in the game on this. Now, are they going to be held accountable to the level of, like a felony or criminal? I don't know, but they could be held accountable, to lose their job. And I think that's just so being taken out of society. It's like, this poor person. No, you know what? There are certain positions where you have to be held accountable for.
So, Jason, what do you think happens? Pilot shows up in the cockpit, gets caught in the cockpit, drunk as a skunk, like passed out in the cockpit. Well, what happens to that dude? Oh man. We had a little technical issue here. All three of our lines, which were full, just aborted all at the same time. Call back in if you were one of those callers. And I remember who was on there? Vince, for sure. Call back in. I apologize for that. 303-696-1971. In the middle of that question, we just had a quick blip here. We're going to cut away for a break and figure out what's going on. I want to tell you first, though, about a guy, Dan Kaplis. Now, he holds people accountable who make the decision to get liquored up or high on drugs or both, because there are folks that do both, get behind the wheel and hurt other people. Maybe you, maybe a loved one, maybe just someone that you care about. Dan's been doing that forever. I know that because when I worked for Dan 15, 16 now years ago, that's what we did. People would come to us and say, I can't walk anymore, or my son got killed, or a drunk ran over my husband who was walking home. Those are legit cases. Those happen. And when someone gets drunk behind the wheel and they go and hurt another person, you think that the insurance company is just going to show up and say, hey, we're so sorry for what happened. We'll make it all right. That is not true. That is not true. I can't tell you the pitched battles that I had under Dan Kaplas's roof with insurance companies trying to get them to do the right thing. Dan has the reputation of holding them accountable for that. So if you know someone who's been hurt, I don't care how badly, if their life has been changed for the worse by a drunk driver or a drug driver, pick up the phone and call 303-770-5551. 303-770-5551. He and his partner, Babar Waheed, and I did Babar's first trial back in front of Judge Wheeler. I think it was Judge Wheeler's first civil trial back in, I don't know, '06. I guess that makes me sound like an old West dude, '06. And they've been killing it together ever since. If you want someone who's got not just a reputation, but a proven track record beyond that, it's Kaplas. I mean, back to back, multi-million dollar verdicts, held a trucking company accountable at a level nobody's seen in the state of Colorado in the history of it. If somebody gets hurt by a drunk driver or drug driver, there's a million options. None of them will be as good for you as calling Dan Kaplas. Check him out at dankaplaslaw.com. Dan Kaplas, Kaplis, law.com. When we come back, more of our callers are filling back up. John, Luke, everybody else. I apologize for that. I think it was Roger, the pilot. I'm sorry, Roger. It's just the whole thing aborted. We'll get it fixed and get you back online here. Give us a call. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes, all in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
kind of perfect bumper music in a way for this topic here. You're talking not to angels, but to this guy right here, George, on 710 KNUS. Want to get caught up on some of the texts that have been coming through here. It says, agree about the disease. Drugs and alcohol are choices. What I have is a disease. My family is prone to drugs and alcohol. Yes, people can become addicted. That was a choice. You did that to yourself. Back to me. I'm diabetic type 1. I did not do this to myself. Well, that's an interesting point. I can't really dispute that. Keep up the good fight, George. Not to be redundant, but this message applies to the topic with the drunk police officer. A society that does not have equal forms of justice, no standards to enforce laws, and allows criminals to run rampant is a society that is destined to fail. Sadly, this is the trajectory the nation is on. Man, I hope not. At least here in Colorado. Just take a look at the legislature, too. I got a column that's up for the Denver and Colorado Springs Gazette. If you go take a look at it. Already within the first week, you can see the legislature is just leaning hard towards offender-friendly legislation as they have for about the past decade. It would be super cool if at some point they thought, how do we reduce crime, not reduce harm for the offender? How do we protect us from criminals instead of protect criminals from the criminal justice system? But more to that to come. Making someone accountable can be compassionate. This isn't black and white. Well, there's that too. George, why did that police chief still have a job? They don't, by the way. It was a deputy police chief, and he is out of that job. Morning, George. I wonder if Pete is aware that interim chief Acevedo states that alcohol-related offenses result in termination. That is supported by APD spokesman Joe Moylan. Wow. No, I did not know that. There's another thing. That is a one-and-done approach right there. My guess is, maybe Pete will talk about this in the future, is that the right approach for Chief Acevedo? Is Chief Acevedo setting back recovery 40 years because he's taken an approach that if you get an alcohol-related offense as a police officer, you're done here at APD? Interesting. We're going to get right back to the phone lines, one of which is open, 303-696-1971. Luke, you're on 710. What do you think, sir?
Hey, George, how's it going?
Buddy, I've felt better, but the show's going well. How are you doing?
Good. So George, my thing is if the officer that found the officer in the car would have handled the situation correctly, like if it was me that got a DUI,
yeah,
I would have been arrested.
You would have.
And so, yeah, and I do a lot of driving right now in my current position, and if I get a DUI while I'm driving, I lose my job. Just straight up.
What if you came back and said, hey, I'm in recovery? Would they hire you back?
I doubt it.
Yeah.
They'd cut me loose so quick. I'm a liability at that point.
Well, that you just brought up the big thing right there. On the civil side of things, for the private sector, folks in a position where allowing someone with that known issue to be behind the wheel, I got to believe is a risk. They could take it. They could sign up for it and insurance and make sure they had the insurance for it. But my guess is most businesses would look at the bottom line and be like, hey, man, I wish you all the best. I want you to be, I can't put you behind the wheel. I can't do that because they're going to sue me if you make a mistake. They're not going to sue the disease. They're going to sue me.
There'd be no hard feelings on their part. They'd want the best for me, but they can't take that risk that I'm going to hurt someone.
Luke, is life better after working with the juveniles?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yeah. But it's good to hear your voice. I love the phone call. Please keep listening and calling. Would you do that?
Hey, yeah, I also have one other thing.
Yeah.
What happened to the police officer that did the investigation or found the other police
such a good question.
Like,
Texter asked that too. It was the deputy chief of police. And because of this, the pressure was so much, he ended up having to resign. So he's no longer the deputy chief of police. Yeah, so that happened. But this thing just left a bad taste in my mouth, Luke, because one, I was powerless to hold this guy accountable the way I would you or me or Billy or Pete or anyone else. And that made it feel unfair. But the second part was, despite the fact that I did this big, like 45-minute press conference, I said, come in and ask every question. Here's how I did it. People are still like, why the double standard? I'm like, dude, I don't have the double standard. I want to prosecute this guy. But even though we have a BAC, I can't admit it because it's a hospital BAC. Even though he gave a confession, it was under this particular law that protects it from being used in a criminal court. So we know what happened. I can't put it in front of a jury. And so people are like, bah, bah. I'm like, it's not the DA, dude. It's the men in blue that covered this guy's tracks, you know?
Yeah. Well, hey, George, I'll let you get to the next caller. I just wanted to say, what a topic today.
Yeah, I know. What a topic, buddy. And you know a lot about this stuff too from the prior career and all that. But listen, I hope I run into you on the baseball fields, buddy.
Me too. Good
See
to
you
see you. Good to talk to you.
Keep up the good work. Hey, Luke's line is open 303-696-1971. We're going to run out of time here in 1 minute. And so, John, if I took you on and said, hey, you had 60 seconds, that'd be unfair. I don't want to do that to you. So, but if you hang on, John and Vince and whoever's calling in on Luke's line at 303-696-1971, I will start the hour with you. We'll do a tiny little reset and I will get you on so we can have this conversation. It turns out to be much more interesting than I thought it was going to be when we talked about it at the end of the 6th, but I want to keep going with this. So give us a call and let us know what you think. Hit us with the text. I'll read those as well. It's just about time for us to punch out. So here's the part, though. I want to let you know that we're actually, you know what? Let me read a couple texts. I get what Pete's saying, but totally agree with you. Also, a teacher shouldn't go back into the classroom. Okay, now the teacher thing I might feel a little differently about. Because a drunk teacher in front of kids, that would really piss me off. There's no question about it. It would make me really concerned about having them back in the classroom. But if the worst thing that happens is teacher shows back up to school drunk, and by the way, if they're a violent drunk, of course I agree, shows up drunk, I don't know. I don't know that that should be the end of teaching. If it's a job where you put lives at risk by being drunk, that's got to be the end, doesn't it? I'm so sorry, man. It's just the way it's got to be. Hey, we'll get back to John and Vince and everybody else in the text right quick after we come back from this break. It's me, George Brauchler, on The George Show. You're listening to the mighty 710 KNUS.
You know why though?
No.
The vocal technique that that Axl Rose is using here is atrocious. It strains and pulls the vocal cords in a way.
Hit a high note, but like right now, if I try to hit a high note, I'm dying.
Now, got to tell you, when that song came out, me and my friends had a version of it we would sing ourselves that kind of had a Colorado homage to it. Instead of Take Me Down to Paradise City, it was Take Me Down to Commerce City, where the grass is brown and the girls aren't pretty.
Oh my sweet goodness! And with that,
yes,
our 10 Commerce City listeners have just clicked off the radio, but you haven't. George Brauchler here on the George Show 710 KNUS final hour. A topic that kind of caught us by surprise, but an important one. I mean, one with, I think, broader social implications. It's one that was important enough that even Pete Boyles, called in to have a disagreement with me about it. And go back and listen to the podcast. It was a thing that I think is very personal, and I think he's concerned that frankly, because the guy beat the system in a way that it put him in a position to be promoted, it does not make sense to me that this guy, the specific officer, Nate Meier, should be in a position to be promoted to be detective. Badge in his pocket, gun on his hip, city car that he's driving around, having done what he did just a few years ago. And I want to emphasize what happened here. This was not a guy who got on a bender and then thought, oh my God, I got to get up and go to work, and drove to work. That's not this guy. This guy was sober, got dressed in his uniform, got in his police car, marked police car, drove to his house, and guzzled down a bottle of vodka. That's my recollection of what happened. That is a very, very different decision than someone who was drunk off duty, someone who got a DUI off duty, someone who got drunk off duty and then was still a little drunk when they came to work. Very, very different. And let's talk about this job. Not a radio host, not a DA, not a judge, not a teacher, not a welder. Those are all important jobs. I've held a couple of them. They're jobs where if I showed up to work drunk, I would expect there to be consequences. I might lose my job. But for police officer, surgeon, fireman, pilot, there's probably more I'm not naming. You get drunk on the job, bye time. I'm sorry. And it's not meant to be a stigma. It's meant to protect the public because you are now a safety risk. A safety risk. And that's just not something we need to tolerate. 303-696-1970. Everyone going right back to the lines. John, you're on 710. What do you think?
Yeah, good morning, George. You know, I was listening to the conversation you had with Pete earlier this morning, and you both have very defendable positions on this. I've got a perspective of some of the things you're talking about. I'm a former command retired Air Force officer, also an airline pilot, and there are jobs that you cannot recover from having this disease, and it is a disease. If you haven't had it or don't have someone in your family that's had it, you don't understand that.
I agree.
And I can understand people who do think it's a choice. It's not. But what you do on the job, intoxicated, if that action alone would have lost your job without the chance of getting it back, you shouldn't get it back. The other aspect of it is some jobs have random safety testing because this is a disease. It can't always be caught before you show up to work. There are jobs where you're randomly tested, whether you're an alcoholic or not. And if you get tapped as having been intoxicated on the job. There's a process to whether you lose it or have to recover from it. In the military specifically, you lose your security clearance and you'll never get it back. And if you're a commander, you will never get command back. You can probably keep your job, but you're not going to get those items back just because you can recover from it.
Let alone get promoted.
Yeah, the whole security clearance thing is another issue with current events. But on the other side, if you have a job that does have public safety involved, there are usually safety nets in place to try to catch this. And also, if you do recover, there are ways to get you back. The FAA absolutely allows pilots to fly after recovery. And that process includes
Does that
twice
include
a day.
if they showed up in the cockpit drunk?
Yes, absolutely.
Really?
Yes. Now, you're going to do your jail time, and then you can get your license back. But it's a long road. You start from scratch. You start from absolutely a private pilot's license, work your way back up.
Okay. So first off, that's interesting that they allow that second chance. But the way they do it isn't just say, "Are you in recovery? Good. Take back over the captaincy." They don't do that.
No, and during a period before you're even allowed to start to get your certificates back, you're being monitored twice a day. They check you twice a day to see if there's anything in your system for years.
And so I'm making this up, but would like a United or an American Airlines or the now defunct Continental, would they cut you loose and then you could reapply to come back, or would they keep you on the payroll but just start you somewhere else?
Well, it depends upon the company's policy and the strength of your union. I've also been a union representative with the airlines. Your unions will probably try to get the company to have a process in place where you retain your employee status. You're not being paid, obviously, but you retain your employee status, and you have the option. You will have the opportunity once you have your certificates back to come back to work.
That is very, very interesting, man. I did not know that. I would have thought that it would have been one and done, especially for being a pilot.
Here's the other aspect of this, and this is an important aspect for the FAA to keep in mind.
Yeah.
We currently have 2 pilots in the flight deck at all times. There's a reason for that. If
Alcohol.
someone shows up drunk, the other pilot is just as responsible to report it and make sure that flight doesn't take off.
Well, that's a good thing too, right? This is a sergeant who was in the car by himself. That's interesting too. The other thing that I know the airlines do, and I know that the military does it, you know this too, is that you can self-report things. Like even up to honestly, almost to the moment of the urine test. Right? Like if a urine test and you come forward and say, "Hey, I got a problem. I just used, whatever it is." There are safe harbor things that exist to try to get you right. This isn't a just gotcha. You have a disease and now we kick you out. There are things in place. The problem that I have is the people that don't avail themselves of that and then put themselves in a position to harm others and then, or even get drunk on the job. That just seems to me to be qualitatively different than these other things.
Well, absolutely. And that goes towards the attitude of recovery. Is someone going to be successful in recovery if they accept the fact they have the problem and they have to be careful in the rest of their life, or are they going to be making poor choices?
Well, John, what do you do then with this guy, this Nate Meier guy?
Well, I would kind of go back to the military command thing. You've lost your trust. Yeah, you can probably do a job, but I'm not sure I'd be promoting someone that has that background. I know the military would.
Yeah. Hey, John, great call, man. Thanks for the insight. Thanks for listening as well. John's line is open, 303-696-1971. Let's go right back to the phone lines. Vince, you're on 710 KNUS. What do you think?
Good morning, George.
How are you?
Vince here. That's my middle name for purposes of identity. I'm in the criminal defense bar, do DUI defense, and I still don't have an adequate number.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
I still don't have an adequate explanation as to why the case wasn't brought to a jury. And you keep saying he's beat the system. He beat a DUI.
Yeah.
I've tried cases in that district recently that were based totally on observations of officers, notes, body cam, and actual physical control of the vehicle. So I see all those here.
Yeah,
and you don't need a confession. I don't need a blood test. And those deputies are taking those cases to trial every day. So what happened here that I can take to my clients and explain why there's not a 2-tiered system one for cops, one for them.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair question given this case, because I think there was a two-tiered system. But here's the only admissible evidence we have. We have a deputy chief of police who finds a guy passed out behind the wheel of his car, engine running, by the way, gun on his hip, the whole thing. And his very first observation is a faint odor of alcohol. But when he returns to the car after calling it in from his car, he said that's dissipated. It's not there anymore. None of that gets reported to 5 different medical health professionals, including the paramedics who showed up on scene. And these are folks who, as you know, the paramedics, they've seen everybody in every condition everywhere. Not a single one of them detected alcohol on this guy. None. They get to the hospital. DUI dudes get called out by the regular Aurora cops.
Okay.
They get called out.
And what was that based on?
Based on that initial...
Someone made an observation that he might be impaired or intoxicated.
That was the thought was, we need to figure out what's going on. Let's send the DUI guys. They get waved off by the deputy chief.
And why wasn't that obstruction of justice or interference with a police investigation?
Because he says, this is what he says. I thought the guy was having a medical emergency. I didn't think it had anything to do with alcohol. The smell was dissipated by the time I got back to my car. I thought it was a medical emergency. I didn't think this was appropriate. Now, so you know how this whole system works. I have no blood test. The hospital took some blood, and we know his blood alcohol level was exorbitant. But I can't get that in evidence. That doesn't come in.
I understand that.
And he goes in and confesses later through that process that you know is protected by the law. I don't get any confession. So what I end up having is 5 medical professionals, none of whom are going to say, yep, I thought he had alcohol on board. They don't think he has alcohol on board. None of them. They're going through a series of rule outs like, could he be having a seizure? Could he be having a reaction to some medications? They don't know what the hell they're dealing with.
Okay. Now, why wasn't the confession and the hospital blood sample inadmissible in a court action? Why wasn't it used for internal investigation of obstruction of that investigation?
Oh, they're
they're
clearly
obviously dishonest. It's obviously dishonest to say, I thought he was having a medical emergency. He's not a medical trained person.
I don't know what happened with
just a cop.
Anything that took place with the IA on the deputy chief. I'm not privy to for reasons you know, but I do know.
Was an investigation brought at all?
Oh yeah.
Fact.
For sure there was an investigation. And I can tell you that the deputy chief then resigned. So I don't know what the result of that investigation was. We do know what the result of the IA investigation was for Meier. He got demoted and he got put behind a desk for some period of time.
For a while.
Yeah. But this case.
So his brother in blue took one for the team. Now this guy's promoted detective.
Yep. That's about it, man. Believe me, I would have loved to have brought this case to a jury with the evidence you and I both know existed. One blood draw would have been enough. In fact, had anyone at the scene told the paramedics, dude smells like alcohol, you know how they work. Their analysis becomes completely different. Now they're looking for other things and they're making different conclusions. Nobody tells them that. And the fact that this dude guzzled vodka, all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I get it. With vodka, it's different.
Well, odor of alcoholic beverage, we get all that. I mean, we see that in virtually every one of our cases. I'm just wondering why the paramedics weren't subject to a second round of interview regarding their observations.
They all got interviewed by us, man. Not only did they interview, we interviewed them as well. The DA's office. I took my best DUI prosecutors in the office and I said, figure out a way to make this thing work. And they interviewed everybody. We had a big old powwow, sat around the table and talked about, how about this? How about this? What'd they say this? Buddy, there wasn't a stone that was left unturned.
Okay.
At the end of the day, I thought, I can charge this guy. It's going away. No jury's going to convict this dude. It's just going to go away.
Why not have a show trial?
No, I don't do that, man. You can't. That's unethical.
Well, I mean,
you know that
some of the cases that are tried in that district are no hopers.
On the prosecution side?
Oh yeah. And
if that's true, that's unethical. I don't see Kilner doing that.
And again, I just see that every day, deputies are instruct, hey, this is going to be a good experience for you. You're going to take a case to jury trial. Let's get these junior deputies.
I don't see that. I've never said anything. A tough case going to trial is one thing. An unwinnable case, that's unethical. And this would have been unwinnable.
And you saw that as unwinnable with that body cam. Even with the faint odor of alcohol, And that body cam and observations might be enough to pass the probable cause and get it to a jury. In that county?
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. I'm telling you, I looked at all the body cam.
Okay.
And there were concerning statements, but none of them would have been admissible. There was just, buddy, if I could, again, I did like a 45-minute press conference with slides and video and the press, like coming in. You know.
George, and I know, I believe everything you tell me. I just haven't heard it all put together. I'm satisfied. I think we're outraged at the result that this guy's, going up the career promotion ladder. I think the boys in blue protected somebody, cross that blue line for that purpose here. It's disturbing as a citizen, as a member of the bar. It's tough. It's tough to hear.
Well, buddy, I appreciate the call, and your expertise obviously matters here too. And I appreciate the questioning, but hopefully those things helped advance it a little bit for you. Vince's line is open 303-696-1971. Listen, Johnny, Brian, and whoever's calling in on Vince's line, I promise I'm going to get to you. You know that's going to happen, but we have these good long conversations. I don't want to cut anybody off, and I don't want to do that. And we're coming close to a break. So let me do this instead. Let me tell you about a superstar when it comes to countertops. This is a guy. His name's Mitch Flory. You've heard me talk about him before. This is a guy who has become more than a businessman. He's a craftsman here in upgrading the interior of your home, your bathroom, your kitchen, those two big areas with the two biggest things that catches your eye, and that's the countertop. Mitch is the kind of guy that you have to meet, though. You could probably close the deal by picking up the phone and calling him at 303-386-5919. 303-386-5919. But I really think what happens is you drive out there to that showroom that I've been to. It's right about the corner of about, 6th Avenue, Colfax, I-70 area. Very easy to get to, very easy to get to. You walk in there, first off, even before you get inside the warehouse and the showroom, you can see all of these giant slabs of these beautiful things. I mean, the quartz, the marble, the all the other stuff that's out there, the granite, even though it's art of granite, they do so much more. It should be the art of all countertops. And then you get inside and you just got these long-term employees who are just so at ease. No pressure. What can we do to help you? What can we show you? You meet Mitch, you're going to end up closing the deal with Mitch. That's the kind of guy he is. You're going to detect the accent. You may not know it. Romanian immigrant legal who left communist-controlled Romania to come to America and start a family, start a life, start a business, and he has. All of them successful. His customers rave about him. Check him out online and do it. You can go to theartofgranite.com. You can check out Yelp or whatever these other things are that maybe not Yelp. It's not Yelp. It's something else. But talk any of these things that Better Business Bureau. People just rave about this guy. I get texts from people all the time. I use Mitch. I love that guy. I didn't even have to hear your show to go to Mitch, but you do. And here's what happens if you do. You tell them you listen to 710 KNUS. You will get 20% off of labor for January. Or get a kitchen or bathroom sink for free with the purchase of any countertop package. Let me say it again. 20% off of labor. That's so expensive for January. Or get a kitchen or bathroom sink for free with the purchase of any countertop package. This guy is a wizard with any material that'll upgrade your kitchen or your bathroom. Give him a call. Mitch Floria, artofgranite.com. That's theartofgranite.com. When we come back, Johnny, Brian, everybody else, and some of the texts that are coming in here. It's me, George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes, all in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS, as promised. Going to go right back to the phone lines talking about this whole Nate Meier situation and issues that really stem from it. Johnny, you're on 710. What do you think?
Good morning, George. I love your show. It's
Thanks.
a great topic. I just wanted to share my opinion here.
Yeah, please.
Now, if my paper boy wants to stumble up my driveway onto my steps and intoxicated, well, I'm okay with that. If any position with a higher level of risk to anyone or their equipment, their belongings, anything, it's just unacceptable. Now, to this specific topic, it's only my opinion, but I believe that officer might have just taken the responsibility and stepped down, maybe even bury him into the basement to put him on a desk job. I do respect and everything that the officers do, and they see the fatalities that they deal with. That I couldn't do it myself. I really couldn't. To sleep at night, some of the things that they go through and they experience, and maybe all that led up to him drinking or that vodka or prolonged disease. I do understand that. I don't think he should have been dismissed, but maybe allowed to continue in a lower position.
Does it matter in your analysis, Johnny, if he had been treated like you or I would have, and he had been prosecuted for DUI, some sort of, I don't know if it's official misconduct, but some sort of official misconduct, and prohibited use of a weapon, which is drunk with a gun, and he had been prosecuted and convicted, likely convicted of at least some of those charges, and that would have resulted in his termination. Does that change your opinion at all? Or is it like, hey, too bad, I know he beat the system, but he shouldn't be punished for it. He didn't ask for the system to let him off. It just did. And that's true. He didn't do anything to facilitate this. It's just some other cop made the decision to help him out.
I would accept that. I believe it's hard to say, George. Really is. Like I said, those experiences of that officer or any officer, I believe he should have just taken the responsibility and accepted the charges, but also be allowed into a lower position.
Why do you say that? And what I appreciate is you recognize that job, when you sign up for it, you have no idea what horrors or evils you're going to subject yourself to. I get that. But in a situation where it's a job like that, or a doctor or pilot or whatever, and I don't mean like a podiatrist, no offense to podiatrists, but like a surgeon, in those positions, do you treat those the same, Johnny, as if it was a radio host? Like a radio host shows up drunk, you're like, give him another shot. Cop shows up drunk, you go, give him. Is it the same thing to you?
Well, I guess if you're going to give him that extra chance, you got to take that, those risk factors and eliminate them. Like I said, bury him into a basement on a desk job, process paperwork, look into cold cases, and so forth. Anything above that for the rest of his career, I don't believe so. I think the experience and his commitment as an officer and the trauma that he's experienced might have resulted and pushed him into that disease.
What if it wasn't that? What if it wasn't that led to that? And I don't think the job can create the disease. I think that Pete would tell you he's born with it, right? Maybe the job facilitated him trying to, take away some of the pain by self-medicating. But let's presume it's not any of those things. Does it matter the reason why he went home and got drunk in uniform and in a police car? Does it matter to you why?
No, that's just unacceptable. It absolutely is. Like you said, it was different earlier. If he would have, maybe the night before off duty and just had a little bit too much to drink and his blood alcohol content was just a little too high and maybe a slap on the wrist, well, that might be acceptable or, considerable factors. But deliberately going home on duty.
Yeah, that's what he did. That's what he did.
I just want to share my opinion, George, and I appreciate you having me on the air today. I love your show.
Thank you, Johnny, and I love that you listen and that you have the guts to call in. It helps, man. This conversation, just me jibber jabbering about it, I don't know. I like the way I sound, but not that much. Going right back to the phone lines. Brian, you're on 710 KNUS. Brian, what do you think?
Hey, you know what? You're a great talk show host. I just want to
Oh,
say that.
thank you for saying that.
Absolutely. No, you bring something that we just never had before. That's not taking anything away from anybody else. But I want to ask you a question. I don't know if you were the DA, but several years ago, there was an off-duty Aurora cop that was arrested for DUI. And I think it was in Arapahoe, but now that I'm thinking, it might have been in Douglas. But he was
Either way, it
driving
would be me.
130
If it
miles.
was Arapahoe or Douglas, it would have been my office.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was driving like 130 miles an hour, got stopped, got arrested. Dan Oates was the chief at the time. So they did all the due process for him through the IA process. And Dan Oates fired him. So what did he do? Of course, he appealed it to the Civil Service Commission.
Yep.
And they reinstated him. And the media, doing what the media does, they came to Dan Oates, and I love Dan Oates too.
Yeah, great guy.
Just his demeanor. He said to them, "Don't talk to me. You want answers? You go talk to the Civil Service Commission."
Yeah.
I did my job. I did what I was supposed to do. I upheld the standards of this department, and they gave it back to him. And there's your problem. And it's not just in Aurora; it's in Denver too. The entitlement created by the Civil Service Commission is beyond the pale.
If you read the article, and there's a couple of them out there about this thing, you will see that the people involved are like, we couldn't stop it from happening because of the civil service system that's in there. Once this guy had passed a certain period of time since his discipline, and he tests for the job and he scored really well, like top 3, that's it. There's nothing you can do about it. Now, there's good, legitimate policy reasons to have civil service protections, but in this circumstance, this clearly highlights a weakness in the system. And I got to believe that with this conversation having started about civil service reform with Aurora months ago, this is only going to be another anecdote that fuels the idea that we need real reform.
No, I totally agree. And I think what needs to really happen, I was astonished a couple months ago when I heard that the police the administration in Aurora doesn't even see a candidate until they're hired. And it's all civil service.
This was one of the things that came up during the day that I went to the ceremony out at the Aurora Municipal Center when Dan Oates was stepping down and Chief Acevedo was coming on board. And one of the things that was talked about by different speakers, and some of them were chiefs of police from other agencies honoring Dan, was I cannot believe that Dan Oates or whoever the chief is going to be cannot hire the people they want to hire to be police. It's true.
At least be involved.
Yeah.
At least be involved. Yeah. I mean, what's the role? It's the role of a chief of police is anything. It's hiring and firing and discipline. And I think Oates even echoed that. And I him and Acevedo, Aurora couldn't have done better with getting a couple of people in there to reform a police department. Frankly, my opinion is I don't think it needs as much reform as everybody wants to think that it does. I think it needs some things like probably any police department does. But those are a couple of guys that can do the job if they're allowed to do it. But when you got civil service running interference, it's not going to happen.
Well, let me pose this to you because I just said this in the last caller, and I want to reiterate it. In no way was Nate Meier involved in the, it's not really a cover-up, but in the failed investigation of his own DUI. Dude was unconscious, right? I mean, he had nothing. He didn't ask for the help. He didn't expect the help. It just happened, right? Some cop just came and made that decision. Does that make a difference to you in the analysis about whether he should, 1, keep his job, or 2, having kept his job, get promoted?
He is doing what he's entitled to have, I guess, is the best way I can see it. Is this a moral or an ethical issue that individually on his? I think you mentioned or commented on that before about not turning it into that. But I don't know. That's a great question. I'm not him. I don't know him.
I mean, he's done nothing wrong since that event, right? Like my guess is he's no violations. He's done whatever treatment, followed the rules. So I don't want this to be sound like I'm out to get Nate Meier. I'm not. I just think had the system worked the way it would have worked for Brian and George, dude wouldn't be here to get promoted.
It's a broader discussion. It's not about him. It's about who comes after him.
Yeah.
And,
and what happens then?
Right?
And how do we address it? Yeah, absolutely. Brian, great phone call, man. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thanks, Brian. Brian's line is open, 303-696-1971. As the phone calls are coming in, and I promise you I'll get to them. I want to remind you about some super awesome event that is coming up. Have you guys ever heard of the Tanner Gun Show? Tanner Gun Show is, it's the biggest deal out there. And I want to invite you to it. It's back in town. It's this Friday, Saturday, Sunday at the Crown Plaza in Denver, near I-70 in Chambers. That's not horribly far from here. That's a little bit of a drive, but that's not bad. That's easy to get to from pretty much northeast, south, or west. And I want to tell you that, look, as a veteran, as the former top prosecutor for this jurisdiction I'm sitting in right now, the 18th Judicial District, I can tell you how important it is, vital it is, to have home protection and security. The police, I love them. You know I'm a big police backer, but they can't be there the second you need them. You must call them, but they cannot be there the second you need them. You're there the second you need them. At the Tanner Gun Show, you'll get the best home protection options available, as well as all types of new and hard-to-find used guns, knives, ammo, AR accessories, hunting supplies, concealed carry classes. That's awesome. And just a ton of cool stuff you can't find elsewhere. There's going to be over 600 tables. Man, that's huge. Prices are up to 30% less than in the old big box stores. Don't forget to sign up for the daily giveaways at the front desk. Get to the Tanner Gun Show this Friday from 3 to 7. That's 2 day. Saturday, 9 to 5. And Sunday, 9 to 4. You can also get tickets online, tannergunshow.com, TANNER, tannergunshow.com, or at the door, always, the day of the event. Parking's always free at the Crown Plaza. Go check them out, and then I'd love to talk about it. If you end up going out there and you make a purchase or something, I'd love to hear about it next week. We'll keep this thing going. Let's get right back to the phone lines. Steve, you're on 710 KNUS. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, George, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I appreciate that. And by the way, as far as your show goes,
yeah,
it's hard for me to take my ear away from the radio from 6 to 10.
Oh, man,
you're
that's
really
very, very kind of you, buddy. Thank you.
You're captivating.
Yeah, thank you.
My situation is 70 years ago when taking a doctor to court was not really the thing to do. I had surgery on something in my throat. You'd probably be able to think of it. And tonsils. And they took them out, but the doctor in the process split my uvula with his scalpel.
Uh-oh. What?
And so my mom was concerned at first because it altered my speech quite a bit. But it didn't end up any harm in the long run because I went on to be a regional public speaker, motivator,
wow.
blah, blah,
and
all
you,
that stuff. So that's a good thing. But my feeling about the situation is that there ought to be some pretty stern application of rules, regulations, and laws when doctors go into that operating room.
Was the guy that operated on you not just negligent? Was he drunk or something? Is that what this is?
He had too much to drink.
Oh my God!
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what level because I'm just getting this secondhand from my mom. When she was alive. So, but that's
what happened to that guy? Do you know?
Oh, don't know. I have no idea.
You guys never sued him? He never got his license suspended?
Not to my knowledge, no. Mom and Dad didn't go after him.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
How does that experience inform the way you think about this Nate Meier thing?
Well, the same thing. It's scary. It's scary enough when guns are running around. And some of the laws just need to be changed a whole lot. But when it comes to a police officer, gosh, he has a certain responsibility. I mean, I know a personal friend of mine, fraternity brother, was a Denver police officer. And then I know one of the former sheriffs, and my gosh, when you're carrying around a gun, that's one thing if you've had a drink the night before. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can. I know, but I know what you're saying. And that's one thing if you do it, if you're still, drunk from leftovers from the night before, I get it. This is different.
But to go home.
Yeah.
And then have something and come back with it. That's like the scalpel in his hand, it's dangerous. It might cloud his decisions, and if I happen to be in the way, I'm a dead duck, perhaps.
Steve, does it matter to you that he had no hand in sort of this failed investigation? In the decision about whether or not he ought to be promoted, let alone keep his job. What do you think about that, first off? What's your opinion?
Well, I suppose he's still carrying a gun, being promoted.
Yep.
So that's a concern.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that still could possibly put people in harm's way. However, if he's not drinking now, that'd be okay, I guess. But I don't know.
There was that suggestion too. Is there a way to keep him on the force, but doing something where he doesn't pose the same risk to the public? That might make me feel differently. I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't want to.
Well, Steve, I love the phone call. Thanks for sharing with us, man. And I'm sorry about what happened to you, but it sounds like you've recovered beautifully. I can't tell that there was any damage done to a tonsil, a glottis, or anything else. Uvula, was that what it was? I'm going to look that thing up online, see what that looks like. Listen, we got one segment left, and we have a line open for you. Fill it. You call it. I'll get you on. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. It's me, George Brauchler, on the last show of the week, The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brauchler right back with you here in the final segment of this final hour of the final show of the first full week for us here at 710 KNUS of the George Show. Thanks. It has been unexpected, and that's just one of these things. You know, the great Pete Boyles has said, radio no man's master. That is true. You just come in with a game plan, and things just go a different direction. And it's, I don't know, Billy. It just, the more we do this, the less I feel like I really understand what the hell's going on here, because this topic was unplanned, but it clearly struck a chord with folks. And I'm moved by that. And I think it's an important conversation to have. It was ostensibly just to update folks on some weirdness that took place with the promotion of an officer who went and got drunk on duty and kind of beat the system through no efforts of his own. And it's turned into a broader discussion about, I mean, almost like, not just rehabilitation. No one's ever used the word forgiveness, but almost like a forgiveness as well. But a rehabilitation, recovery, what does it mean? Who it should be extended to? I appreciate all that stuff. This is the other thing, though. A texter texted in, Billy, and pinged me and said, you promised you would talk about Biden. So we don't have enough time to really develop the topic, but we're going to talk about Biden. In fact, I'm going to let Biden talk about Biden.
People know I take classified documents and classified information seriously.
Yeah, Mary.
When my lawyers were clearing out my office at the University of Pennsylvania, they set up an office for me, secure office in the Capitol.
Secure.
When the 4 years after being vice president, I was a professor at Penn. They found some documents in a box in a locked cabinet, or at least a closet.
Just looking around.
And as soon as they did, they realized there were several classified documents in that box. And they did what they should have done. They immediately called the archives, turned them over to the archives. And I was briefed about this discovery and surprised to learn that there were any government records that were taken there to that office. But I don't know what's in the documents. My lawyers have not suggested I ask what documents they were. I've turned over the boxes. They've turned over the boxes to the archives, and we're cooperating fully with the review, and which I hope will be finished soon, and there'll be more detail at that time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, since then, as you now know, there has been the discovery of more classified documents tucked away in the Biden library, which also doubles as the Corvette garage. And all of the books and papers that are very important are kept in boxes stacked up in the corner. There are folks that have certain concerns.
Here's an individual that sat on 60 Minutes that was so concerned about President Trump's documents locked in behind, and now we find it just as a vice president, keeping it for years out in the open in different locations.
Now, listen, I spent a lot of time talking about the Trump classified documents thing, and I still think it's a serious thing. But, oh my gosh, talk about just having provided a blanket of no prosecution for President Trump. In my opinion, it does not matter how KJP or anyone else spins this from this point on, having found that second batch, and I think there's a third, having found that second batch in his garage. Now, it's a locked garage, people. It takes the genie, too, to open that thing, the right button. It's over. If they tried to prosecute President Trump and did not prosecute Joe Biden, it's over. Because remember, the response to having the classified documents, that is one thing. But it does not provide exculpation. It does not provide protection from the fact that you had them against the law to begin with. That's the crime. That's the crime. It's absolutely crazy. Here's some more stuff to listen to.
I do not think.
You ever heard the expression, the customer is always right? Yeah.
We just fired the whole board, Billy. I think
I do not think any American believes that justice should not be equal to all.
Yeah, equal justice under the law. That's now a big deal. I think this unforced error is going to provide all the cover that President Trump needs, not because he didn't do what he's going to be accused of doing, because he did. He was in possession. Please don't tell me he declassified them. Please don't do that. He doesn't act that way. He doesn't say that. We would have access to them if that were true. Oh my goodness. This is a gift to President Trump that just keeps on giving. How about these sage words?
The president and his lawyers acted promptly upon discovering of this mistake.
Probably. It sounds like months transpired between the initial discovery and the initial report. We've got the Attorney General of the United States now involved. He is in quite a pickle, isn't he? He had just appointed a special prosecutor to dig into all of the Mar-a-Lago records. And by the way, I'm not sure where they're safer. Are they safer in like the club room at Mar-a-Lago, or are they safer in Biden's garage next to the Corvette? This is just so laugh out loud city. These folks, I mean, what is going on when it comes to secret information?
The document authorizes him to investigate whether any person or entity violated the law in connection with this matter.
Now, listen, I've got these two other great clips. We just don't have enough time to play them all from Garland. But at the end of the day, I think he's right to appoint a special prosecutor. It's got to be somebody that doesn't have to answer to him, though. That's the problem, is you want to break away from the authority that flows from the president through Merrick Garland to investigate the president, right? That makes sense. You want to have a break in that. I don't think he's accomplished that through this special counsel. If he's allowed to appoint and that person answers to him, it's still too icky optic wise for me. I think he needs to go a different direction. They probably need to get Congress, in my opinion, to authorize a special prosecutor to look at both cases. Take them away from Garland. They should take them away from him and let them dig around and figure out what the hell went on here. But I got to tell you, President Trump has to be smiling ear to ear after this dumpster fire, and it's not over. And the questions include things like, why didn't we know about this sooner? If we knew about the first thing before the midterms, why didn't the public know about them before the midterms? Doesn't this feel sort of Comey-esque, with the whole Hillary Clinton thing and what information to reveal and not to reveal? This is just nutty stuff that's going on. I will be pleased as punch to continue to talk to you about it over the coming days and weeks as the story continues to develop. Can't wait to see how many questions KJP can dodge regarding this particular topic. One texter, if you watch Fox, you would know about the third batch. Yep, I don't watch Fox ever, really. Used to, but just it's too much for me now. But there's a third batch apparently already. Oh, my God. This thing, if you're Trump, you don't say a word. Don't say a word. I know it's hard for him. Just sit back and let this fire build all by itself. I want to go back and see all of the really strong over-the-top comments from all the lefties out there condemning Trump. I want those replayed now. If I had the time, I'll go find them. Listen, hey, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for suffering through the illness, the tech stuff that we had. And on Monday, I'm going to try to sound better. I don't know about perfect, but I'll try to sound better. You stick around. Let's have the conversation. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS.